This broadcast of the Competizione Performance League Real World Racing Day is brought to you by Malwa Transport, oversized cargo and trucking logistics specialists of Quebec. Visit their website on www.malwa-transport.ca. Good evening, race fans, and welcome back to TRTN for tonight's coverage of a special event by the Competizione Performance League, the Real World Racing Day, right here at Watkins Glen International. As always, I am Regan Clark, and of course you join us here in the heart of Schuyler County, New York State, just on the outskirts of the town of Watkins Glen at the International Circuit here at Watkins Glen International. Founded in 1956 in the modern day, comprised of 11 turns and 3.4 miles of FIA Grade 2, this is a fantastic jewel of American auto racing. Cut its teeth through the world of stock car racing in its inaugural years, with 1956 seeing the introduction of two major events, that being the gold bowling at the Glen, which 1957 was Go Bowling at the Glen before the NASCAR Cup Series, what came to be of that. And then in 1956 also saw the introduction of the 6 hours of Watkins Glen in what then came to be the IMSA Sports Car Championship. Other than NASCAR and IMSA, we've also seen race out of here the Trans Am Series, and also it was the former home of the United States Grand Prix in the world of Formula One. As a matter of fact, 1971's long course layout, one that we still see used in large part today, the skeleton frame of that was completed for the 1971 United States Grand Prix. It's the layout we still see today, save for a few safety implementations introduced in 1992 following fatal incidents the year before that saw the construction of the inner loop chicane at the start of Sector 2 in 1992. It's set to be a very exciting session today, one highly experimental in nature and a prelude to a larger project coming up next Saturday with the introduction of the Competizione Performance League World Series. Taking a look here as we're in the final 10 minutes of free practice with just about 8 minutes left to go into the session itinerary. At the moment, we're just coming off the back of what has been 4 hours of free practice. You join us in the last 10 minutes as we get on to the look of 60 minutes of qualifying and then 120 minutes. That's 2 hours of racing, 2 mandatory pit stops with an open strategy for each stop there. So no mandate on fuel, no mandate on tyres. It is totally open-ended for the drivers. The only bottom line is they must pit twice. And taking a look on board at the moment here with Vincent Simard in the number 120. Plenty of drivers to get ourselves accustomed to. Plenty of drivers we've seen as well over the course of some other smaller series here on the Competizione Performance League. One driver in particular that crosses our minds, Alan Such, now behind the wheel in the number 998 McLaren. Last time we saw him, he was with Aldi in the Triple Crown Enduro Series. We also see on the grid as well Stefan Nicolai, a driver we normally see in the NLRL Sunday League. We saw throughout Season 4 and Season 3 for that matter, I believe mostly in Season 4. Now he's behind the wheel of the number 100 Lexus RCF. Plenty of drivers then to get ourselves accustomed to. One of the major changes on the grid comes from the one currently at the front of the field. Christian Lebay has moved to the Ford Motor Company. Now, this was a big surprise to us. He had teased for some time his move to Jaguar, and this was in the trailing end of Season 5 of the Sunday League where we first caught wind of this news after what had been 4 seasons in competition with Aston Martin. Lebay was hot on the trails to join Jaguar after his brilliant results in the Competizione Performance League Jaguar GT3 Revival Series, but this was a heel-turn decision in the last 2 weeks that has now seen the Canadian talent and multiple-time champion here on Competizione Performance League move to Ford, and this is a move he'll continue to reciprocate not only into the upcoming World Series here on Competizione Performance League, but also coming up next week into the start of Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League. Set to be an exciting road ahead. Plenty of drivers in today's session. We see comprising that top 3 then, Lebay, Such and Rafael Bayer in the number 28 Lamborghini. That's with Black Nitro Racing. George Todd makes the back of the top 5 behind Stefan Nicolai at the moment. You can now see separate of his colours from the 5-star esports team. He most recently had a surprise departure from that team in the last couple of days, with no current indication as to where the number 12 may be heading off to. Artemi Yartsev in 6th place at this time. You can see him side by side with Stephen Black on the run down through Chute Corner at turn 6. 2 Ferraris there side by side. The 666 in the silver and black is what we're seeing there from Yartsev. Further down the line, Carl Martel in 7th with Lucas Milch in 8th place. We see storming their way out of the pit lane by looks of it there. That was Vincent Simard down in 12th place. We'll get back on with him in a moment. We see David Tanguay in 9th place on today's field. He's the only one seeming to drive for Bentley today. That's going to make for an interesting conversation over what is going to be an hour of qualifying. Plenty of time to unravel things. And we'll have a look at what is our predicted top 10. Richard Cecil, he finds himself at the back of the top 10. Now having moved away from his last choice in the Triple Crown Enduro Series with Honda, has now moved over to greener pastures at Porsche. Finds himself currently 10th place and really not too far off a shout of being in 9th by the end of this session. You see Wright, the number 54 that we've seen in a myriad of series across both Competizione Performance League and High Caliber Community League, has been a case that now he's joined that of Lexus's ranks for this one-off exhibition event. Vincent Simard, we saw, of course, as well, storming out the pit lane there, 12th in the session, and ahead of Kyle Jenkins, the number 113 5-star esports Ferrari. See Alfie Hughes in 14th place. We'll get on to the division rankings here in a moment's time, because you'll find that Hughes is actually on for podium in division, by the way that times are looking at the moment. Thomas Petrakovsky in 15th place, ahead of Jorge Martinez. In 16th, we see Joey Fisher, 17th, new driver on our radars. Be curious to see what the 59 Lexus can do. Andrew Veldkamp in 18th, ahead of Matthew Shanowski. In 19th place, very striking colour scheme there on the number 669 Ford Mustang. Didier Potvin, 20th, ahead of Clement Quentin-Lutram in 21st place in the number 511 Honda NSX. Very curious choice of machinery indeed. Stephen Black in 22nd, Samuel Bell 23rd, and Brooklyn Donkin of Euro Titans Endurance in 24th. Still yet to have put a time on the chart, but a very late entry into this free practice session. But I suppose in his case, better late than never. 3 minutes then left to go in free practice, and this will be a point we continue to talk about throughout qualifying, is the look of balance of performance. An extensive list giving us the highs and lows of gain and loss in this session so far. Bentley set to be best in class with 36 kilos shed away. So for David Tanguay, you'll see the best advantage on paper against any other machine on this grid today. At the moment, he's 9th place behind Lucas Milch and Carl Martel, but ahead of Richard Cecil, just towards the back of the top 10. Honda set to lose 20 kilos, so fantastic news there for Clement Quentin-Lutram in the 511. Set to lose 20 kilos coming into today's session. Lexus, one of the more prolific manufacturers on today's grid. We're seeing a lot more Lexus cars in recent memory compared to other exhibition events in the past. We see the RCF will be losing that of 15 kilos coming into today's session. BMW then following on their trails. We see here with Alfie Hughes in the pit lane, BMW losing only 5 kilos, so a third of what Lexus is getting in this round's balance of performance. Porsche set to lose that of 3 kilos. We see here with Richard Cecil on his way out through to turn 4, now on the run down the back straight to the inner loop chicane before turn 5. Porsche losing only 3 kilos. And then we see at the moment, moving on to the next manufacturer in our line of sight, but sadly I don't think there is one on the grid, though there was one signed up out of the Jackal, and that was Nissan gaining a kilo. Ford then, what has been a powerhouse manufacturer on this grid here, we see Matthew Shanowski making his way around the boot. That's actually at the toe section, so turn 7. Ford gaining only 3 kilos, so it is a surprise then to see them not on the short end of the stick when it comes to BOP. Ahead of them in terms of the balance of performance, McLaren with 4 kilos added, Lamborghini with 6 kilos, and then looking further down the field to try and locate one, Mercedes gaining 13 kilos, and then really at the short end of the stick, if any of them are still present on this field today, Aston Martin with 15 kilos. But again, that remains to be seen in the case of 2 manufacturers on today's grid. Coming up then into the last minute of competition here in free practice before we're on to what is definitely the longest qualifying session of all. Heading down towards the line then, right behind the wheel of the number 54 Lexus. We'll stay on board with him as we get our breakdown tour just before the run of qualifying. We see out through turn 1 then at the 90 degree right hander brings us immediately on the run up through the S's at turns 2, 3 and 4. And this exciting ascent brings us up round turn 4. You see it's cambered on the inside, allowing drivers to keep the foot absolutely buried in the floor on the run down the back straight in towards the most recent addition to the track, the inner loop chicane, introduced in 1992 to complete what is now known as the Grand Prix layout. Making our way then around the outer loop, turn 5. On the run now down into what is the boot section of the track, starting things off here at Shoot Curve. We see, though, running out wide, so that looks to be the end of the lap for right. We may have to wait on board with another driver here. We see this is Brooklyn Donkin starting his only flying lap of this free practice session. Now, we're not long from the start of 60 minutes of qualifying, so plenty of time for these drivers to get acclimatized with the track and with their machines today, as we now see the tally of drivers brought up to 24 in today's race. Now, that number is still set to climb, within and around just shy of 40 having signed up for this one-off event here at Watkins Glen. So out through turn 6 at Shoot, we're on board now with Brooklyn Donkin on his way down towards turn 7 at the toe. Heading down the boot straight, then in towards turn 8, coming up next, a long sweeping right-hander, quite sharp on entry. This is at the heel section. Now on the run into a heavy overtaking opportunity area here, turn 9, into that third sector, still on board with Donkin. Down towards turns 10 and 11, last two corners of this circuit. Very simple in nature, but it has given us some fantastic scopes of racing in the past, with every chance for it to do so today on the run in towards qualifying and the race therein. 2 hours of racing, double the length of qualifying. Down towards the line then, Donkin. Cross the line, and we'll see what that time was concerned with as we begin the look of an hour of qualifying, easily the longest qualifying session on record here on TRTN. Taking a look then as to what he was able to put in at the end of that flying lap, looking around for Brooklyn Donkin here on the charts, and it was 21st at the end of his first flying lap. Now he'll have plenty of opportunities over the course of qualifying today. We can see making their way out on track. We see here with Vincent Simard behind him. That's Jorge Martinez in the number 1. First among the fray, though, the number 100 Lexus of Stefan Nikolai. Now, we have a rough look at the top 10. We have it screenshotted here on our notes, as we were not able to get any SimBot data to bring to the charts here. Normally what you'd come to see on the right-hand side of your screens in quite a few TRTN broadcasts, but taking a look into our notes here to see what that top 10 is concerned with. Lebay predicted at pole position, with Zalan Such second, Rafael Bayer third, Stefan Nikolai on your screens at the moment predicted at 4th place. George Todd predicted at 5th, with Carl Martel 6th, Lucas Mills 7th, Artemi Yartsev in 8th, David Tanguay 9th, and Richard Cecil in 10th. Now, I want to point out in this data packet we were able to recover, that puts the top 5 drivers within a second of the fastest lap. So that is very, very close margins indeed. If we're taking a look at more local gaps, you'd be finding yourself more concerned with the current stack of the second row of that grid. We are seeing very close gaps, and in the same story we're seeing from 6th to 7th place, Martel to Milch is in the gaps, ranging there of about 5 thousandths of a second between those two. Up on the second row between Rafael Bayer and Stefan Nikolai, predicted 3rd and 4th respectively. We're looking at gaps in and around the range. Again, actually, it looks to be 5 thousandths of a second, so dead on perfect with both of those two discussions. And there looks to be very, very close margins on the carry in towards the first flying laps. We're on board then with Stefan Nikolai, set to become the first time onto the charts, as he's the first to take to the flying laps. From behind him there, we see following on his trails, that is George Todd in the number 12 Ferrari. Number 998, Zalan Such just got out on track in front of Nikolai. Listen to that thunderous sound then. 5.4 litre V8 engine. Not too dissimilar to what we see in the Mustang. Of course, this was engineered or co-engineered by Lexus and Toyota. Now the humble RCF is set to be replaced in the world of GT racing by Toyota's GR GT3. You see in the background there, George Todd very wide out through turn 5 on the run in towards turn 6. So that could very well be an invalidation on the first flying lap. Now, it's a lot more relaxed, this qualifying session, I would come to say, over the course of the next 57 minutes, because, of course, it is the longest qualifying session we've ever seen. Now, some of the shortest qualies we've seen on record have been about 10 minutes long. So to have effectively 6 of those sessions stacked back to back to form the basis of this one, it definitely does keep things quite relaxed, quite low-key by comparison. See, trouble for the number 28. They're back into the pit lane almost immediately. That was down at turn 5. We stay on board here with Stefan Nikolai. Run in towards turn 10 and 11. 56.5 minutes left to go then. Really quite a lot of time to play with. Lap times ranging in and around the 140s, mid 140s there, 143 being fastest, down towards the line then first on the charts, 144.530 by Stefan Nikolai, invalidated for George Todd. We see next towards the line from behind him the number 21, Samuel Bell. 1.3 seconds off the beat there, but nonetheless makes provisional second place. That's immediately down to third with the arrival of David Tanguay. We can see a whole swarm of cars behind him. Vincent Simard now up to second, then Martinez to second place by half the amount of time to Stefan Nikolai. Number 5 coming to the line. We'll see if we can intercept them. That's Richard Cecil with Porsche on his way to the line. Then the 114 following on his trail, so 5th place there for Cecil. The 114 coming to the line. Ben Cheeseman with 5-Star Esports, driving for Lamborghini. Very peculiar signs indeed there. From behind him, the 99, believe that to be Carl Martel on his way to the lines there, and fastest for Martel in the 99. Then the number 3, you see here, Alfie Hughes. Then the number 669, so behind him there, that's Matthew Shanosky. Hughes 8th fastest, Shanosky to the line, 9th fastest. Number 119 coming in then, so this is Christian Lebay on his first drive then on the screens with Ford. This has been a very surprising turn in his GT3 career. We see there onto his first flying lap, so that was an out lap for him. We'll come to see where the nearest times are coming from at this time. The 998 crosses onto our radar. We saw heading out on track was Zalan Such. We'll see whether or not this is the flying lap that we missed out on the start of, whether or not this is still part of the out lap we saw earlier on. Well, with the number 100 up in front of him, I am likely to believe the latter here. Zalan Such down to the line to start another flying lap in the number 998. Across the line he goes, and on to that flying lap from behind him. Stefan Nikolai back up to the fastest time of the session by just shy of 0.4 of a second. From behind him, we saw one of the Lexus cars on his trails there, and that was not Vincent Simard, so that only really leaves by process of elimination. That was right. And the issue why we get so many of the Lexus cars mixed up is because they have a very limited palette of available liveries. It's actually one of the most restrictive cars. So it does end up in a case here, as you can see, that both Wright and Simard's cars are practically identical, save for the number along the side of them. The number 5 coming to the line then, Richard Cecil from 7th place. And then we see from behind him there, I believe that to be the number 7, that's Lucas Milch. On his way to the line with Black Nitro Racing onto a flying lap from behind him as well. We see the number 35, and I believe that to be Didier Potvin with Malwar Racing Team. He's across the line starting another flying lap. Ben Cheeseman on his trails down through to turn 1. The number 3 nearest to the line, but I believe that Alfie Hughes pulled to one side to allow the number 12 Ferrari of George Todd extra leeway down to the line. Hughes into the pit lane, Todd towards the line. Can he put a time on the charts? Not on that last lap just gone. From behind him, we saw there that was Shanosky. And still 9th place in this session, but ahead of Joey Fisher. The 119 heading down towards the line then. The first flying lap on record for Christian Lebay, and across the line he goes. And up to the second fastest time by 117 thousandths off of Nikolai. Does make for a surprising start to things. Normally we see quite early doors leaps up to the fastest time, but this is definitely a great start, all things considered, amongst that top 3, 2 Fords and a Lexus. We are, of course, in the home of American stock car racing, with this being a heritage site for both NASCAR's Cup and what is now known as the O'Reilly's Auto Parts Series, formerly the NASCAR Xfinity Series. So it only makes logical sense that this place would be dominated by the V8 engine, but I'm sure everyone was surprised to find just a moment ago there it was not dominated by the traditional kind of V8 engine. No, it's a European offering. McLaren, the 720S Evo, courtesy of Zalan Such, now fastest, 143.607, up by 343 thousandths of a second. Number 58 coming to the line. It might be, actually, was it number 20? No, not number 28. It was definitely the number 58. I think I might be going a little bit blind. It's actually the 59, yeah, so perfect point there. Joey Fisher across the line, 13th fastest in the session. Number 7 coming down towards the line. Lucas Milch, now 9th place with Black Nitro Racing. Now we've still yet to see his teammate, Rafael Bayer, to the line. Speaking of, oh, it's a huge impact with the wall there. Turned out through turn 11, collided with the inside wall. We see they're getting up past him was the 35 of Potvin and the 114 of Cheeseman. We see, by the looks of it there, neither of them were able to put times on the charts in that last lap. The number 12 does manage to put a time on the charts there. We'll see how that ranks up for George Todd, as he now finds himself 4th fastest, sandwiched in between the 2 Malwar Racing Mustangs at his front and rear there, Lebay and Martel. Speaking of, Lebay to the line from 3rd. And across the line, fastest by 7 thousandths over Zalan Such with McLaren. So on his first drive for Ford. Things already shaping up to be an exciting one here for Christian Lebay. The 666 coming to the line. Look to catch on board the Artemi Yartsev. Behind him, the Honda of Clement Quentin-Lutram. 998 next to the line. We saw the 998 there. Zalan Suchary takes the fastest time of the session by 90,000. So this hangs in a very thin balance between him and Lebay at this time. It has been, in the opening 10 minutes of this hour-long qualifying session, already has been a tit-for-tat, blow-for-blow performance between these two. Performance, what on earth does that mean? Joey Fisher across the line to 13th once again, retakes that position off of Alfie Hughes. Number 5 coming to the line. Richard Cecil 6th in the session so far. Not shy of a chance to be inside of that top 5. We see from behind him, Lucas Mills from 10th. Had a bit of a wobble there on that last corner, so no improvement over his current standing on this grid. We see nearest to the line the 114 Lamborghini of Ben Cheeseman. In the number 12 Ferrari of George Todd, we see Cheeseman to the line. This is to put a time on the charts. It's 13th fastest for Cheeseman. Then from behind him, Todd 4th on the field. An improvement on his personal best, but not enough to advance to 3rd place. Still needs in and around the range of about 0.2 of a second to get up past Stefan Nikolai. 90 thousandths what divides Lebay from Zoots. We see across the line again goes the Mustang, but to no improvement this time around. So it looks to be a bit of an old western draw between these two. A 2-horse race at the front of that field for this pole position in the CPL Real World Racing Day. Across the line a moment ago then went the number 666. So that was Artemi Yartsev, the Estonian talent with Ferrari, now 8th fastest and up the road from Jorge Martinez and pushing David Tanguay to the back of the top 10. Now this does come as quite the surprise, considering on paper Bentley would have just as much, if not the same level of an advantage in today's session as Ford and Lexus. It's a V8 heavyweight front-engined rear drive. It's a lot of stability focus in this car compared to Ford and Lexus. This is the kind of car that can tackle the curbs here at Watkins Glen across the line. And now we start to see the fruits of that performance. I was a little confused for a moment there. Tanguay now 6th fastest with Bentley. Number 54 coming to the line, so that'll be right with Lexus. Across the line he goes. Onto another flying lap from behind him was the number 59. And taking a look there, that was from behind him. Joey Fisher also with Lexus. We're seeing a decent spread here of Lexus cars available on today's grid. The RCF, one of the oldest designs for GT3 that is still kicking around to this day, came about in roughly 2015, if I'm not mistaken, and is still used in both the World Endurance Championship and the IMSA Sports Car Championship to this day. It is a very popular car, and as mentioned before, it is set to be replaced by the Toyota GR GT. Now, we don't know whether or not it'll be rebranded as a Lexus to compete in the North American theatre, but as we see there, big trouble for Fisher on the exit of the inner loop chicane. Took a little too much curb, was flying head over heels there. Fortunate to have avoided the barrier. The 119 across the line a moment ago does split the gap down by some way. 13 thousandths worth of an improvement for Christian Lebay, now to bring it to 27 thousandths of a second between himself and Zalan Suits at the forefront of today's fighting. You see though, for Suits still leading the charge in the number 998. The Hungarian talent from the Velocity Racing team down towards the line. Is it going to be an improvement over his personal best? Not this time around. We see from behind him there was the number 100. Stefan Nikolai maintains control then of the 3rd position of this grid. Still holds ample distance over George Todd in the timings of today's session. Looking in the ballpark there of about 257 thousandths of a second between these two on that second row. Now, bear in mind, quite a few drivers we've still yet to see any times out of, and with the session so long, I think we will definitely be waiting for some time before we get anything constituting data on at least some of these drivers. We see here Kyle Jenkins, Thomas Petrakovsky. We see Rafael Baez out on track, so we're very likely chances to see the first of those times coming through. Same story for Quentin-Lutram in the 511. Andrew Veldkamp still yet to get out on track, and this is an ambitious new drive for him. The 616 now moves to Porsche for this event. Stephen Black still yet to see anything out of. Brooklyn Donkin, same story. And Didier Potvin, same story. But in the same case as we saw there for Quentin-Lutram and Bayer, he's also out on track. So with chances for that to change in the near future. Number 511, so we are about to see Clement Quentin-Lutram to the line with Honda. We'll see whether or not this does go onto the charts or if there will be another lap to be expected from Honda, and yes, that is the case. A very curious vehicle. Now, a very rare number of occasions we've seen Honda on the grid before. It has been a bit of a crowd splitter choice. We saw it over the course of the Triple Crown Enduro Series. Richard Cecil was one such driver behind the wheel of the NSX, and it's definitely been a bit of a mixed bag for Honda. They're routinely outshined for performance on these grids by their fellow Japanese manufacturers at Nissan and Lexus. In today's case, we'll see whether or not they can start to outshine the growing mass of Lexus vehicles present in today's grid. That 511 currently out through the inner loop chicane. Nearest to the line then looks to be the number 21, so we'll catch on board here. This is Samuel Bell, just at the back of the top 10, having recently passed up Jorge Martinez. Across the line he goes, now 3,000ths, or 300ths I should say, sorry, away from Richard Cecil. Behind him, the number 7 started another run of flying laps. That's Lucas Milch. Now, to bring you into the topic, whilst we've got plenty of time, 45 minutes as a matter of fact left to go in this session, as to some upcoming events in not only the Competizione Performance League, but also to give you some understanding of today's event. You'll notice that there are 2 distinct colours in those timing charts. Cars with white numbers here, such as the case for Zalan Suj, Christian Lebay, Stefan Nicolai, George Todd, so on and so forth. And then you've got the red numbers, such as the case for Samuel Bell, Jorge Martinez, Lucas Milch, so on and so forth. Now, this denotes 2 distinct categories in today's race. So there will be 2 race winners to come out of this exhibition event. The white numbers indicate the pro drivers, the red indicates the AMs. So at the moment, Samuel Bell is on for an AM pole position, leading the charge for the AM drivers from 10th place on the field, tucked in behind 9 Pro Series drivers. Speaking of, we see here, Such down towards the line, the 511 just up in front of him there. No improvement over his personal best, as things still hanging thinly in the balance between these two. See Artemi Yartsev out through turn 11. And to the line he goes from 7th on the field. Now, he's definitely got chances to intercept right up in front of him. Gap between these two hovering just in and around, I think, about 93 thousandths. We're talking there between the 54 and the 666. Number 21 coming to the line then, so we'll catch on board once again with Samuel Bell leading the charge for the AMs. Needs 300ths to get to 9th. Across the line he goes. No dice on that one. We see from behind him, colliding with the wall, was Lucas Milch of Black Nitro Racing. The 54 coming to the line then, so we'll see here with Wright next to the line in this session. 43 minutes, of course. Still a long way to go before the end of qualifying, and that's our prelude into the run of 2 hours of racing here at Watkins Glen. Across the line then, he does manage to, by looks of it there, trying to make sense of the whole situation. By looks of it, I'm pretty sure he was just able to open up the gap just a little bit there. Actually, no, as a matter of fact, it's not 93 thousandths, it's 87 thousandths of a second that divide these two drivers. So, very curious one. So that's no change in it. We just had to redo the maths. Well, nearest to the line on a valid flying lap, currently sandwiched in between invalid times from the 998 and the number 5. We see here the number 511 Honda. See Zalan Such out in front. No improvement over his personal best. We see about to enter the timing charts, 19th there for Clément Cantalutan with Honda. And from behind him, we saw the number 5 of Richard Cecil maintain his position of the field, breathe hundredths of a second between himself and Samuel Bell at the back of the top 10. And then in the scope of things up ahead, just shy of 3/10 of a second away from David Tangway in 8th place with Bentley. 120 nearest to the line at this time. That'll be Vincent Simard, currently 13th on the field. And stays there after that last lap. The number 21, Samuel Bell, coming to the line here, still tantalizingly close to an opportunity to be up in 9th place. Bear in mind, a long way to go before the end of this qualifying session. Cannot stress that point enough. So you can see it's a lot more relaxed from the majority of the field. They're not really having to get their teeth out too early. They're not too afraid of the consequences ahead, knowing the amount of time they have to bounce back from anything that does come up in their way. We can see right at the back of the top 10 here, this is just something I want to discuss, is just how close the gap actually is between 3 drivers in particular, that being Richard Cecil, Samuel Bell on your screens at the moment, and Jorge Martinez. Front to back separate by, looking at it there, 55 thousandths of a second. Just a little over half of a tenth of a second. Very, very close. And that's all in competitive stead for 9th place on the grid. You can see another close by gap to be considered at this time. Now this could still be opened up here between Martel and Wright. Across the line goes Martel and still stays on his current personal best and maintains 5th place. Those two separate by 55 thousandths as well. And that's just for 5th. So to get on to the discussion of the road ahead here on the Competizione Performance League, as we catch on board here with Rafael Bayer, up in front of him Samuel Bell, potentially to make moves to 9th place. Now, we'll stay on board with the Lamborghini as we make our way around Sector 3 to discuss the upcoming Competizione Performance League World Series. Now, this is set to pick up on the 7th of February 2026, so next Saturday, at around the same time that our broadcast has gone live today, around, on our charts, it was about 4:50, so about 10 to 5 Greenwich Mean Time. Now, it'll be the same timings as the session today, where it will be that 4 hours of free practice. You'll join us for the last 10 minutes here on TRTN before we get in towards a slightly shorter qualifying session, but the real kicker is a difference in the racing format. 3 back-to-back 40-minute races. First round set to kick off at the Grand Prix Circuit, Silverstone. Round 1 of the championship, Paul Ricard. Round 2, Imola. Round 3, Watkins Glen. That we're here today for the Real World Racing Day. We'll be returning to our screens in Competizione Performance League on March 14th, round 4 of the championship. At the season midway, round 5 at the Red Bull Ring. And then into the second half of the season, we find Spa, Barcelona, Bathurst, the Hungaroring, and the Nürburgring. The whole season set to wrap up over the course of about 3 months from February to May. That's actually about 4... No, it is 3 months. It is 3 months. I'm not going crazy. But it is looking to be a very grand calendar indeed. And that's set to fill in for the slots where we have absences in some of those large late-night events here on the Saturday time slot here on TRTN. So this will be worming its way around what's remaining of Season 2 of the Console Endurance Series over on NLRL. This was Competizione Performance League's answer to having a big prime-time event on the calendar. And what's good as well, because of its timing and because of the time slot it occupies, as we saw over on the Triple Crown Enduro, we've got a little sprinkling of it there. This time slot works perfect across both borders here. So in the North American theatre and in the European theatre, we are going to see drivers from all walks of the community here on the Assetto Corsa Competizione console sort of world, as it were. That's going to be an exciting event. We go live with them at Silverstone on the 7th of February 2026, next Saturday at around 4:50 p.m. at Greenwich Mean Time. That'll be around, if I'm not mistaken, about midday in Eastern Standard Time. So picking back up here before we get to the halfway mark of this qualifying session. I must say it is rare that we have these opportunities to have such a long qualifying session to talk about. Often these things get wrapped up. This is a qualifying session actually longer in part than the entirety of the last event we covered over on VSR. That was 10 minutes of qualifying and 45 minutes of racing. So this whole qualifying session today here in Watkins Glen has been longer than that front to back. So very surprising stuff indeed. Now, the whole idea behind the Real World Racing Day is, as the name implies, it's designed to mimic the timings and structure of a real world race day, and that would include a longer qualifying session. That would include an extensive free practice session. Some drivers having been in here since around 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning, around 8 or 9 a.m. And for us, that would have been probably about midday our time, Greenwich Mean Time, here in the UK. So they've been here for 4 hours, extensively testing those machines. And you can see that that has really come to fruition here, as now we see LeBay faster than Zelan Such by 137 thousandths of a second. In the time we've been talking about it, Such now down to second place, LeBay now up 137 thousandths. And it is a case here that these two drivers have been practicing hard for this event. 2 hours of racing, open strategy. It is going to be both a mind game and an on-track game here in equal respect. They're going to have an airtight strategy for this race today. Not only that, they will have to have perfect mastery of their machines. Looking at the session so far, as we get on towards the halfway mark of this qualifying session, I am surprised to see Lexus this far up the order. Not only do we have up in the top 3 here Stefan Nikolai, but to mark that as well, we have 2 Lexus cars inside of the top 10, with Wright currently 6th place ahead of Artemi Yatsev, but behind Karl Martel. So taking a look at the session so far, Lebay fastest, Zuch 2nd, Nikolai 3rd, Todd 4th, Martel 5th, Wright 6th, Yatsev in 7th. That's actually just been pushed down to 8th place by Vincent Simard, now to 6th place in the session. You see slams into the wall. Alan Suits coming to the line now, needs 137 thousandths. Just shy of a 10th.5 here on this last lap. Can he get up and around Christian Lebay? He does split the gap nearly down the middle there. 80 thousandths, 800ths to be precise, between himself and Lebay, as we get on to the 35-minute mark remaining of qualifying. You see there 3 drivers in frame. That was Nikolai, Yatsev and Shanovsky on their way in through to the inner loop chicane. Now, this is going to be a serious area of contention in terms of vehicle setup. If the car is held up a little too tightly, it's not super responsive to the bumps, or it's a little too reactive to the bumps, to be more precise on that statement. So they are going to find serious trouble navigating that very narrow section of the track. It is almost, at the speeds they're going, impossible to avoid clipping a curb. So the cars do have to be built for a little bit of that combat with the curbs. They have to be a little bit softer around the edges to make sure that they can tackle this track like a stock car. And this is definitely the culture shock that comes with racing here at Watkins Glen. It is a track that has been designed over the years around stock car racing. It has not been designed for the more dainty qualities of modern GT3, but nonetheless, these cars can still hack it, as evidenced by the current top 3, Lexus, McLaren and Ford. Very few surprises, if any, that Ford was going to be leading this session. They've been one of the most dominant manufacturers on Assetto Corsa Competizione, at least on console here, for the last few months. I would even go as far to say the last couple of years since its introduction to competition. We saw stepping out through turn 10 just from behind. We saw it blurred a little bit there as we were still focusing on Stefan Nikolai down towards the line. Is it an improvement over his current personal best? Sadly, not this time around. Artemi Yatsev now closes the gap down in towards turn 1 from behind them as well. We saw was Matthew Shanovsky in the 669 car, stays in 16th place there, currently Division 4th for the AM drivers. This is again a point to prove here. We can see that gap now separate front to back at the forefront of the AM grid between Bell, Milch and Martinez is in the range of 25 thousandths of a second. So a quarter of a 10th of a second. So that is really quite fine margins to play with. They're even closer in that top 3 is the gap between Lucas Milch of Black Nitro Racing and that of Jorge Martinez in 3rd place. They find them separated only by a 100th of a second. They're 10 thousandths. Martinez across the line. Sadly couldn't find that 100th in the last lap just gone, let alone the 25 thousandths necessary to catch up to the forefront of the AM field, still held in part here by Samuel Bell. And behind him, the number 120, Vincent Simard, most recently made his way back into the top 10 proper. We see, though, sizable damage on the right-hand side. I think he might be pulling this one to one side here down through turn 5. 32, just under 33 minutes left to go here in Watkins Glen. So still yet to see times here from Kyle Jenkins, Charlie Harker, who most recently joined the session. We see out on track at the moment. This is soon to possibly change his current fate of things. That's Thomas Petrakovsky in the number 14, down towards the line then with Mercedes AMG. And he's an 18th fastest there after his first flying lap. From behind him, Zalan Such, still by 800ths of a second to the fastest time of the session. So now we only have 4 drivers left to discuss here that have yet to put times on the chart. We see Charlie Harker making their way out onto the track here in the number 72 Mustang. Very late sign in. Missed out on the 4 hours of free practice. Joins us just before the halfway mark of qualifying, but there goes the 72 out on track. So it leaves Stephen Black, Brooklyn Donkin and Kyle Jenkins all without a time on the charts here with just shy of 32 minutes left to go in what has been so far about 29 minutes coming up on of qualifying in this hour-long session. Number 5 then coming to the line, Richard Cecil, most recently having been pushed out of the top 10 by Rafael Bayer. Now looking for redemption. Cecil across the line, sadly couldn't find anything of it. Artemi Yatsev from 8th place on the field stays there. We see from behind him the Bentley and David Tanguay. Very close indeed to the Estonian up in front of him there in the 666. The gap between those two we can see is in the range there of about 13 thousandths of a second. So very, very close stuff to be had between 8th and 9th place there, just on the bridging point between the 4th and 5th row of today's grid. Number 59 across the line a moment ago is onto another flying lap. So that's coming out of the 59 there. That is Joey Fisher with Lexus. Now his closest gap, he finds himself dead level at this time with Tomasz Petrokowski. He's going to need a single thousandth to reinforce 17th place. Otherwise, that is increasingly vulnerable position to hold on to. His real targets are going to be set up in front of him there, separate by, looking at it here, just shy of a tenth of a second between himself and Matthew Shanowski in the number 669. We see trouble, though, for Fisher out through the inner loop chicane, fortunately, to keep himself from any damages at the wall there on the outer loop. Sizable runoff there down through that section of the track. Nearest to the line, the 21 will catch on board here, Samuel Bell. Not far off a chance here of being up in 11th, potentially even 10th place by the end of this session. Now, we've been talking about close gaps for some time, and there is still one to be had. Now, bridging into that top 10, really. You're taking a look here, front to back, from 6th all the way down to 10th place. We're talking there from the look of Vincent Simard's point of view over to Rafael Bayer's. That's about 100 and looking in there, 123 thousandths between Simard and Bayer. And that comprises currently 5 positions of today's grid in just a little over a tenth of a second. Nearest to the line, the 59 car, that would be Joey Fisher. Of course, we saw those issues for him over the course of the last lap, so we'll not be catching on board with him for the start of this next one. We saw that that was an invalidated lap, so for Fisher, he's on to another flying lap. We've been watching here with the forerunner of the AM category here. This is Samuel Bell. Now, seeing how this top 10 scales up at this time against our predictions, right now the front row is looking exactly as we expected it to be. Labey from Such at the front of the field. Nikolai pushed up a position though, because we've still yet to see that 3rd place performance from Rafael Bayer in the number 28. And speaking of, he's actually just up in front there in the Black Nitro Racing Huracan. One of 2 on the grid, the other being down in the AM category is teammate Lucas Milch. Down towards the line then, here comes Bayer. He's caught in that sort of wad of times there from 6th down towards 10th. He's the back marker of it. As mentioned before, 123 thousandths of a second is what divides him from 6th place on the grid. So that is a lot of ground covered in such a short amount of time. Down through turn 11 we go. George Todd now on board with the number 12 as he makes contact with the wall. Now, that has been a repeat offence for quite a few drivers on this grid, and that's a little too common now. It's why that area is reinforced down at turn 11. A little too many cars now making contact with that area. Number 5 following on his trails, Richard Cecil, still looking at his chances to return to the top 10. Across the line goes the number 5, and sadly still can't find any headwind of it. David Tanguay down towards the line, can't find any room over Artemi Yatsev up in front of him in 8th place. Still remains in 9th. Getting a look on board with some of the drivers here. Now, we want to try and catch on board with either the 30 or the number 5. We'll get on board with David Tanguay's point of view. On board with the Bentley. And now this is to give us a look of that run through the inner loop chicane, because this is an area of the track that has been responsible for so many incidents in previous runnings at Watkins Glen. You can see just how little available space there is. It's already caught out the number 5 just up in front of Tanguay there. Yellow flags out the number 5 of Richard Cecil. And you have to have a bit of a juggernaut of a car like the Bentley, like the Ford, like the Lexus for that matter, to be able to come through and tackle that section with very little issues whatsoever. It does definitely make us wonder what kind of witchcraft was performed by Zalan Such and the Velocity Racing team to make that number 998 720S such a formidable talent of today's grid. A car that has already had a history in this sport of stability concerns is onto a track with very little consideration for the more dainty cars of GT3. You can see there, though, in spite of those stability concerns, it's definitely been a setup of the ages here for Such, because he has just absolutely ploughed through the inner loop chicane. Very little concerns. See, though, little spikes there of an understeer, and I believe this does coincide with the track evolution at this moment. The track might very well be getting hotter. These were claims brought up over the course of the free practice session. Drivers concerned that the track heat was on the climb and that their performance was tanking because of it, because the track was getting too hot for the Pirellis to handle. Well, taking a look at the timing charts here, you can also see the weather conditions. Track temperature now up at 27 degrees Celsius and 20 degrees Celsius ambient temperature in the air surrounding the track. Meanwhile, LeBay now fastest by 0.02 of a second. So to the dismay here of Zalan Such, we'll catch back on board with him to see what his telemetry is concerned with. You can see he's off by about half a second because of the understeer he had through sector 2 and 3. Down towards the line, then he goes onto another flying lap. Frustration perhaps mounting early doors here as we just get into that second half of qualifying for Zalan Such. So close yet so far away. That's been the story of today in terms of the front row of qualifying. Zalan Such was able to close the gap in. It's actually, no, sorry, it wasn't a case where LeBay was back out in front. It's a case where Zalan Such was able to claw time in by quite a distance there. Those two were separate in and around the ballpark not very long ago, mind you, of just over 1/10 of a second. Now it is very, very close to being McLaren back out in front of things. .54 nearest the line, right on his way in. Following his trails there, the number 12 and the number 5. That's George Todd and Richard Cecil. Right, 7th fastest in the session so far. Todd from behind him there, still 4th place. We see for Richard Cecil, now having been pushed down to 12th place by most recent advances there by Charlie Harker. Now sandwiched in between Artemy Yartsev and Rafael Bayer. Pushes Yartsev to the back of the top 10. It pushes Tanguay out and it pushes Cecil even further back. But where this slots in terms of the grand scheme of things, we see now as Simard and Wright are dead level for times, 1.027 seconds away from pole position. Taking a look as to how that compares on the actual time scale here between these two. They do find themselves dead level with the 144.367 between both Lexus cars, the number 120 and the number 54. Zalan Such had a bit of a cropper through that last run of things, getting a little bit too elbows out, so he's back into the pit lanes to reconfigure, rejuvenate and rerun. Petrakovsky with Mercedes AMG, 20th in the session so far. 146.255 is personal best over the last lap just gone. Currently finds himself sandwiched in between the BMW behind him of Alfie Hughes and up in front of him Joey Fisher's number 59. That he's actually dead level with. So a lot of stories here of drivers going dead level for times. Petrakovsky and Fisher still in very close proximity to one another. That's a story reciprocated up front here between Simard and Wright, the two Lexus cars head to head for the last of the top 6 positions to be on that third row for the race start. Does represent a very powerful position in the grand scheme. Of course, with 2 hours of racing here at Watkins Glen and with how quickly these starts can descend into chaos, being on that top 3 rows can make the world's difference for some, as we've seen the real danger zone to crop up just out past them from the 4th row back towards the very back of any grid. Is where we've seen the majority of incidents kick off. We did, of course, see some major incidents in the past, namely in the Jaguar series, the Jaguar GT3 Revival series by Competizione Performance League, and that was over here in Watkins Glen, where there was a huge calamity on the start in the first half of the season. Over the course of that last lap, we saw the number 17 was out on track. That's the BMW. Brooklyn Donkin, 16th fastest there, just shy of a top 15. You can see, though, the BMW currently out on track. Behind him there, the number 21, Samuel Bell. Now, this is a curious case for Brooklyn Donkin. Of course, we've seen him on a number of occasions with the Euro Titans endurance team behind the wheel of the 7th generation Ford Mustang. This time around, for this one-off round in Watkins Glen, he has opted to go with the BMW M4. It is a very bizarre choice. Of course, it does have its qualities against the Mustang. The two are very much so mixing in similar circles in terms of where they lie on the current ACC meta, and of course in terms of performance for the front-engined category of GT3 cars. They do find themselves often trading blows, but it has been a curious case here for Donkin, a driver normally we've seen to get up towards the top 10. We saw that toward the latter end of the Sunday League in its time with Ford, for him to currently be scraping around just behind the top 15. Petrakovsky, most recently, now up to 16th place. Nearest the line, the number 5, Richard Cecil from 12th. Sadly, still can't find an improvement over that last lap, so we'll catch back on board with the number 17, Brooklyn Donkin, on his way round turn 11. Behind him, Samuel Bell. From 17th on the grid up to 16th, ahead of Petrakovsky. Still needs about just under 4/10 of a second to Martinez to make the top 15 here for the number 17 car. Nearest to the line on a valid flying lap, the number 14, so we'll try and catch on board with them just before they get to the line here. I'm trying to find them, the number 14 car, that being Petrakovsky. From 17th. Can't retake 16th there. We see from behind them the, looking at there, the 607, Kevin Quain. Now up and ahead of Petrakovsky in towards 17th place. Only 2 thousandths by that matter as well ahead of the AMG number 14. From behind him there we see hugging very, very close to the back end. I believe that is, yes, that is Lucas Milch with Black Nitro Racing in the number 7 car. The run up around turn 4. Up in front, we saw recent moves there. Artemi Yartsev, the Estonian talent in the 666, now up to 4th in this session and make 2 Ferraris inside of the top 5 now. He puts himself up the road ahead of George Todd by 137 thousandths of a second. Currently finds himself scratching behind the podium here by looking at it there, about 80 thousandths, so 800ths. Separating 3rd and 4th position of today's grid. Stefan Nikolai still maintains control of the podium start. At the front of the field, though, it is still the story of 2. LeBay versus Such. Ford versus McLaren. Ferrari and Lexus, though, set to be amongst the best of the rest here. On the 2nd row backwards, Lexus 3rd, Ferrari 4th. And then on the 3rd row, Ferrari 5th, Ford 6th. Number 30 to the line. David Tanguay still within his chances to return to the top 10. Currently being relegated outside of it by Charlie Harker. 616 coming to the line. Andrew Veldkamp, 25th in this qualifying session. We have seen that a lot of the drivers we were talking about from earlier have now started setting times. We see Veldkamp most recently advances there to 24th on the field. The number 7 from behind him, Lucas Milch, still looking to get up and ahead over Samuel Bell. I mean, both of them have now lost out on that leading position of the AMS after Charlie Harker in 10th place on today's grid. Bell relegated to Division 2nd, Milch to the back of the division podium, only by a single 100th ahead of Jorge Martinez to make Division 4th. And then Tomasz Petrakovsky makes the back of the division top 5 for the AMS. And that currently constitutes 8 positions front to back of the grid, with Harker 10th, Bell 13th, Milch 14th, Martinez 15th, and Petrakovsky in 18th. Number 120 coming to the line. We do see an incident as well for the number 59 car there. That is, by looks of it, we'll catch on with the moment. We see here across the line, Simard sadly could not find any times. The 59 car was Joey Fisher. Now, there's been a repeat number of issues here for the 59. We saw stability to be amongst primary concerns here for Joey Fisher throughout today's session. Across the line, Cecil still hunting down a top 10. Number 21 from behind him, Samuel Bell. Now, the gap between himself and Charlie Harker sits in just under 0.4 of a second between these two to decide the front of the field for the AMs. Across the line, now into 12th place goes Samuel Bell, up and ahead of Richard Cecil by 0.02 of a second. The number 30 from behind them, that's David Tangway, 11th place. And then from behind them, Stephen Black in the 7:07. 7:07 across the line, still yet to report a time on the charts here. But with 17 minutes left to go in what has been an hour-long qualifying session so far, it is going to be quite interesting to see where he lands on today's grid. Number 7 coming to the line, Lucas Milch. Just as much as Bell is hunting down his chances of the lead of the AM category. We do see an improvement that puts him dead level with Richard Cecil. The number 113 coming to the line. We're about to see here across the line Kyle Jenkins with 5 stars. 16th fastest there for the number 113. Across the line from behind him was the, looking here, the number 54. So that was right on today's grid. 7th on the field so far. Martle ahead of him in 6th. Bayer behind in 8th. He's side by side there with Rafael Bayer of Black Nitro Racing. Ever the faithful talent there for Lamborghini. Very rare has it been where we've seen him separated from the Huracan. Clearly has a preference on his way around the inner loop chicane. 8th fastest at the moment though. Fastest of the 3 Lamborghinis in circulation on today's grid. The other being his teammate Lucas Milch. The other after those two being Ben Cheeseman currently in the pit lane. The number 119 crossed the line a moment ago onto another flying lap. Christian Labey on what has been an ever ambitious start with Ford has definitely kicked off with the wheels already very much so in motion. 1:43.340 the fastest time by the 119. Still 200ths up the road from Zalan Such in 2nd place. And he is still feverishly hunting down his chances at pole position today with a quarter of an hour left to go before 2 hours of racing following up here at the Competizione Performance League Real World Racing Day. See though, taking a bit of a breather on the run down towards turn 8 is Zalan Such. Perhaps trying to build some heat into the tyres there. We have seen that to be a tactic before, and he is sliding his way through turn 8. He's perhaps trying to build a little bit of extra heat on the tyres before he goes into his next flying lap. 54 nearest to the line then, we catch on board. Once again here with Wright and Bayer. 7th and 8th of today's grid. Across the line then, Wright 6th fastest. Bayer stays in 8th. Martle now shoved down a peg to 7th. 9:98 across the line a moment ago. Here goes Zalan Such. Couldn't find the 200ths necessary. Of course, we did see, of course, it was a case where he was building up into this lap. So we'll see what he can do. And already it has come apart at the seams down at turn 1. But of course, 14 minutes left to go in qualifying, so not all hope is yet lost. Number 511 across the line a moment ago. Clément Quentin-Lutrin with Honda, 25th in the session. Currently finds himself from the nearest car, at least separate by about 1.9 seconds. Number 25 coming to the line. .35, I should say. Sorry, that would have been Didier Potvin, 24th in the session. Number 30 coming up next. That'll be David Tangway. Still at the back of that top 10, of course. Looking for his chances to regain position off of Charlie Harker, and that he does over the course of the last lap. What's the response then by Harker, who is right on his tail there by 100th. Between the pair, it stays in control of Tangway over that most brief of exchanges. The number 72 still off by 100th, but makes 10th place and still at the forefront of the AM drivers. Number 12 from behind them there, that was George Todd, still hunting down an advantage over his fellow Ferrari and looking to get up onto that second row ahead of Artemy Yartsev in the number 666. 54 coming to the line. Here's Wright, and following on his trails again, Rafael Bayer. Wright 3rd fastest, Bayer 4th fastest. These two feeding off of each other's performance today, and it makes the entire second row change with Wright now to 3rd, Bayer to 4th. This pushes Stefan Nikolai down to the back of the top 5. It pushes Todd and Yartsev, all the way out of the top 5. That is a huge impact there on the grid. If they're able to hold on to this in the next 12 minutes, that does shake things up massively. Of course, Rafael Bayer was predicted 3rd in this session. In terms of where Wright was predicted, there wasn't actually a scope to go off of in the end of that free practice. in the time that we took that data packet, there was nothing to go off. If we see LeBay to the line, is it an extension over his fastest? Not this time. Still 200s between himself and Zalan Such. We see nearest to the line comes the number 35, Didier Potvin, across the line from 24th up to 23rd, now ahead of Andrew Veldkamp. Didier Potvin, of course, we saw him with Aston Martin in GT4. Now we see him drive with BMW here in GT3. We saw across the line a moment ago. Perhaps that was a bit of a shift on the grid, and yes, it was, because reconnecting to the session is Vincent Simard. Number 72 coming to the line. We see Charlie Harker from 11th on the field. So that does explain why those two suddenly peaked up into the trailing end of the top 10 there. Nonetheless, they still hold on to that 100th of a second worth of a gap. But now with the introduction of Vincent Simard back into play here from what is now re-inheriting 9th place, they find themselves separated front to back for control of 9th. This is between Simard, Tanguay and Harker, all by 700ths of a second. Number 28 coming to the line. We saw a great improvement of performance in the last couple of laps here by Rafael Bayer. Needs 300ths of a second to get up to 3rd place, where he was predicted to be by the end of this session. With 11 minutes left to go, coming up on 10 into the final 10 minutes of what has been an hour of qualifying here in the Real World Racing Day by Competizione Performance League. There is absolutely the chance on the table here for Rafael Bayer to do so. Now, let's not be naive and not consider the element here of Stefan Nikolai, Artemi Yartsev and George Todd. Now, all of these drivers here from 3rd down to 7th are separate by looking at they're doing the rough maths about 327 thousandths of a second. 3 tenths, 207 thousandths. So very, very close stuff to be had there from 3rd all the way down to 7th. And what comprises currently 5 cars inside of that top 10. Right, though, we'll be beaming ear to ear upon that lap time. The number 54, 3rd fastest, taking that spot off of Stefan Nikolai. So out goes one Lexus, in goes the other. And the elephant in the room definitely being the introduction of Lamborghini to that top 5, pushing Ferrari out of commission there. Artemi Yartsev, who was in for the 4th place of this grid, now pushed down to 6th by that most recent wad of times by Wright and Bayer. We see Bayer, though, flaking in and around turn 8 and 9 here. Bit of trouble for stability with Lamborghini. Now, as much as we've raised that criticism in the past before with McLaren, that plenty of drivers have reported stability concerns, even more in the few number of people to stay on with Lamborghini report all to the same. And really, it comes by philosophy of design. The Huracan is a little bit shorter in terms of its wheelbase compared to its contemporaries. It's a little bit sharper around the edges, both physically and in terms of its on-track performance. That does make for a very lively package. Now, we've seen Italian manufacturers do this in the past to great successes. In fact, I see a lot, and this is a bit of a lofty claim, so do bear with me as I explain this one. What gives me the same kind of vibe as the Lamborghini Huracan in GT3 is what gives me the same kind of vibe as the Lancia Stratos in Group 4 Rally. It's quite a rough around the edges sort of car, playing with a lot of concepts that aren't often explored in its category, and as it turns out, being a little bit sharper, being a little bit shorter, and a little bit livelier was the performance edge they needed. We see the Huracan is a very popular GT3 in its day now, and sadly at the time the Huracan now has since passed. We move on to the new era for Lamborghini with the Temerario that's set to replace it. As we see there, trouble for the 59 and the 28, both of them. I think the 59 was trying to get out of the way of another car, then has the number 28 up over his nose. Not really much he could have done in that situation. 8.5 minutes left to go. As we see there from the paddock, across the line a moment ago when I believe they're looking at it was Didier Potvin. Yes, that is the case. 24th on the grid at the moment. We see making their way out is the number 17, Brooklyn Donkin, currently 16th on the field. Up in front of him there, getting immediately back out on track is Rafael Bayer. Not looking to go down without a fight here. He is hunting down 3rd place with religious fervour. 300ths of a second is what divides him from Wright up in 3rd place. Number 7, his teammate coming to the line, Lucas Milch of Black Nitro Racing. Now, he's still on for a podium start in AM. We'll see whether he can get the leg up over, and that he does, and by a landslide to, I was about to say to 7th, to 8th place overall, up to the forefront of the AM category. Lucas Milch, bravo. 2 Black Nitro Racing Lamborghinis inside of the top 10. We can see rocketing their way out of the paddock there was the number 3, if I'm not mistaken. That's Alfie Hughes. And something has me believing here that the pit limiters were turned off for the exit of the pits. So the drivers, they can turn the limiter off and just cane the throttle out. And that's exactly what Hughes has done. He's flown out of that pit lane. Now, we won't be able to do that during the race. That would be a sizable penalty if he does. But since there is no current risk involved, we've seen quite a few drivers. We saw Vincent Simard do it earlier. Now we see most recently Alfie Hughes doing the same, where they go full Thunderbirds and just launch the car out of the pit lane. That's brilliant. So, looking at the current scope of the grid here as we drop in towards the last 7 minutes of qualifying, not far from the last 5 minutes as things stand. It's Christian Lebay still in the lead of qualifying today. Zalan Such second fastest with Wright in third, Bayer in fourth, and Stefan Nikolai makes the top 5. Artemi Yartsev in 6th place ahead of George Todd in 7th, Lucas Milch in 8th ahead of Karl Martel 9th place, and Vincent Simard rounds out the top 10. Behind them, David Tangway in 11th, Charlie Harker in 12th, Richard Cecil in 13th, Samuel Bell in 14th, Jorge Martinez in 15th, and Brooklyn Donkin in 16th. Ben Cheeseman 17th with Kevin Quain 18th, Kyle Jenkins 19th, and Tomasz Petrikowski in 20th place. Matthew Shanowski in 21st, ahead of Joey Fisher 22nd, Alfie Hughes 23rd, Didier Potvin 24th, Andrew Velkamp 25th, Clement Quentin-Lutram in 26th place, and Stephen Black in 27th. In terms of the top 3 in both categories, it's Lebay, Zuch, and Wright for Pro, and then it's Milch, Harker, and Bell for AM. You see the 119 is actually about to come back down towards the line here. 143.340 to beat. Across the line he goes and doesn't find anything of it. We see in the background there colliding with the wall was the 114. Ben Cheeseman with 5-star. On his way to the line there, still 17th in this session. Behind him, we see approaching the line was the 99. Not the 99. So got those two mixed up there. That was actually... looking at it there, the 607, so that was Kevin Quain. So you see here, this is the 99. Karl Martel on his way to the line. The 72 behind the 607 at this time as well. We see Martel to the line from 9th place, stays there over the course of that last lap. 5 minutes then coming up on left to go in this session. The number 120 nearest to the line, Vincent Simard with Lexus, 10th place on the field at the moment, not far off a chance to advance quite a few positions on today's grid. The number 30 from behind him, David Tangway with Bentley, separate from Simard by 0.06 of a second. But then more poignantly behind him, separate from Charlie Harker, on for a podium start in the AM category, not far off a stab of being in the top 10 himself. And the number 72, those two are separate by a 0.01 of a second. So nearest to the line appears to be the number 12. We'll catch on board here with George Todd. Behind him, the number 59 car. We'll see that to be... Is that the 50? Yes, it is the 59. So that would be, I believe, Joey Fisher. And yes, that is the case. Fisher, 22nd. We see across the line a moment ago. Todd in 7th. Number 119, again down towards the line here. He's led this qualifying session for onwards of nearly an hour. Traded blows on several occasions with Zalan Such across the line. Goes Christian Lebay, still yet to have improved upon his fastest time of the session. The 114, the 607, the 72, and the 28, all coming down towards the line from behind him. So for the 607, 16th place there for Kevin Quain. Ben Cheeseman, 18th. The 72... was a case where Charlie Harker maintains 12th, still yet to get up and around David Tangway. And then in the topic of the 28, Rafael Bayer, still off by 0.03 of a second to a podium start. The 54 coming to the line here, and this is the driver he's been trying to catch up to, Wright, and the number 54 Lexus still on with that just over half a second margin to the fastest time of the session. He's back onto another flying lap. The number 30 down towards the line, David Tangway from 11th on the field, needs 0.06 for a top 10 start. Couldn't find it in that last lap, but time is starting to grow a bit fickle here on what has been nearly an hour of qualifying. Number 17 coming to the line from behind him. That'll be Brooklyn Donkin, 17th on the grid at the moment. Where does the BMW land over that last lap? Stays in 17th place. The number 35 of Didier Potvin following on his trails. Another BMW down towards the line. Goes Potvin from 24th. And stays 24th on that last lap. Now, quite a few times showing up as invalid there. And those are the blue markers. But we always do try to take at least a glance in at what that could be, as sometimes the data is not always accurate. We see here for Zalan Such down towards the line. Still within 0.02 of a second. So we'll catch on with the nearest cars to be on for valid flying laps. We see here with Alfie Hughes, the number 3 from 23rd up to 21st over his last lap just gone. The 119 does not yet extend over his personal best. LeBay still stagnating at a 1:43.340. Is that the upper ceiling then for what that Mustang is capable of on today's circuit? See the 607 across the line and up to 9th place. Skyrockets out of the back of the top 15 there for Kevin Quain. Up to 9th place, tucks in behind Lucas Milch, but ahead of Carl Martel, car that we had him mixed up for not too long ago. 2 Malois Racing Mustangs now makes 3 Malois Racing Mustangs inside of the top 10. 54 across the line. Sadly to no improvement. He's on towards his final run of flying laps in qualifying today. Wright holding on by a hair's width here to 3rd place over Rafael Bayer. Lexus could be on for a podium start. The number 30 across the line a moment ago. David Tanguay still in 12th, but he's within his chances in one more lap of qualifying to try and get a leg up here into the top 10 over Carl Martel. Moreover, his main sights have been set on his teammate Vincent Simard, number 120. You see coming into the pit lane, so that's the end of his qualifying hopes for today's session. Number 35, Didier Potvin coming to the line. Following on his trails, the number 7, a landslide turnaround there for Lucas Milch. 8th place on this grid so far. Stays there over the course of that last lap onto another flying lap. He goes the 998 in hot pursuit from behind. It's Alain Such by 0.02 of a second still onto his final flying lap. It is still up in the air as to who exactly is going to come away with pole position, as it has been held with such a thin grasp between these two over the course of this hour of qualifying. Down towards the line, the 119, onto the final flying lap he goes, but he's calling it quits there. LeBay satisfied with a 1:43.340, and he'll have to hope that that's enough. As we see here, Such on his final flying lap. We'll catch on with him in a moment's time. The 72 was nearest to the line, but it looked to have been invalidated for Charlie Harker. Not that I imagine he'll be arguing too much with where he's currently starting in division rankings, 2nd in this session, but in the overall, that's 13th. Number 54 coming to the line. I believe, yes, into the pit lane goes Wright, so satisfied with what he's done so far. Into the pit lane goes Wright. Contempt with 3rd place. Now, we find all to the same story here on the front and 2nd row. Things going down to the wire with their challengers still out on track, and the defending drivers of 1st and 3rd now both in the pit lane. Number 30 comes in by the looks of it there, and that's David Tanguay into the pit lane. The number 17, Brooklyn Donkin, nearest to the line. 17th in the session so far. Not far off a stab of a top 15. Needs about 0.3 of a second to do so. Down towards the line goes Donkin from 17th on the field, and across the line he goes to 17th as he stays. 35 peeled off down through turn 10. That was Didier Potvin giving some leeway over. We see pulling into one side there is Alain Such. At the end of his qualifying endeavours, will at the best of times start 2nd. We see for Rafael Bayer, he's going to carry this one all the way to the checkered flag at the end of qualifying here. Can he make his way to 3rd place over Wright? Not this time. A separate by 0.002 at the very end. So close, yet so far away. The number 21 nearest to the line. Samuel Bell from 15th stays there at the end of the session. From behind him, we see Alfie Hughes from 21st and stays there also at the end of what was a fantastic hour of qualifying in today's session. Did give us quite a lot of dramatic stories, only set to be sort of complemented and followed up on in the 2 hours of racing to follow. Now, to remind you of the session itinerary for today's race, we've just come out of an exhilarating 60 minutes of qualifying. It didn't really feel like it was dragging on at all there, despite its enormous size for a qualifying session. We're in for 2 hours of racing to follow here in Watkins Glen. 2 mandatory pit stops with open-ended strategy. So no mandate for tyres, no mandate for fuel. It is totally upon the volition of the drivers to take either of these elements into consideration. We're about to see a very exciting grid get onto the track as well. We see joining us right at the very end there, Actually, no, neither of these two have been accounted for, but you can see they did make attempts to join. That was Radoslav Kowalczyk and Sergio Hernandez. But it seems that neither of them are present on today's grid. We'll have to wait and see full confirmation of that. But getting a look onto the grid then for this session here, the Competizione Performance League Real World Racing Day at Watkins Glen International. It's Christian Lebay on pole position ahead of Zalan Such by 200ths of a second after a very close-winded qualifying session over the course of the last hour. Right in third place, and Bayer separated by an even closer gap. 10% of the gap we saw up front, as these two were separated by 0.002 of a second at the end of qualifying for third and fourth position. Stefan Nikolai in fifth, with Artemi Yartsev in sixth place, George Todd seventh, and Lucas Milch leading the AMPAC there from eighth place on the field. Ninth place for Kevin Quain and 10th for Carl Martel to put three Malwar Racing Mustangs inside of the top 10. Just outside of the top 10, two more Malwar Racing cars, Vincent Simard and David Tanguay on the sixth row there, 11th and 12th. Charlie Harker in 13th place starts division second for the AM category, and alongside him on the 7th row, 14th place for Richard Cecil. Samuel Bell in 15th with Jorge Martinez in 16th, 17th place for Brooklyn Donkin and 18th place for Ben Cheeseman. Kyle Jenkins in 19th place ahead of Tomasz Petrikowski in 20th place. Matthew Shanowski 21st ahead of Joey Fisher 22nd, Didier Potvin in 23rd, Andrew Velkamp 24th, Clement Quentin-Lutram in 25th, Stephen Black 26th, but as we saw there reconnecting, that's Alfie Hughes now down to 27th on this grid. So he was scheduled to start 21st, but now he's been knocked down 6 positions due to a disconnect, rejoins the grid down in 27th place. And that's not going to be mighty great news for him, but considering 2 hours of racing here, he has every chance to make that up. About a minute then left to go before we get on to the formation lap. Of course, in the most recent wad of news to come out of the world of motorsport, in the Miami E-Prix, Mitch Evans wins with Jaguar in a wet and wild Miami E-Prix as well. So I'm pretty sure in this new year, he's actually leveraging parts of the Miami International Autodrome, moving away from Homestead, Miami, or it might be and vice versa. I'm not entirely sure there. This was news that came in quite recently, so we'll pick back up on that probably in the near future on that topic. So 30 seconds, we'll catch on board now with Lebay at the forefront of this field. We see Alfie Hughes now having reconnected from the back of the field. We'll start 27th of this race. On board then with Lebay. Looking over the rear, you can see that second row very close by to him, that being at this time Wright and Bayer. Now Wright finds himself in a very powerful position. We know how formidable Lexus is on the getaway on the race starts. We've seen it throughout history here on TRTN. So starting in the wake of the leading car does leave the opportunities open for Wright to get an early attack there on Zalan Such on the run down towards turn 1 at the 90. He'll be up the inside following on the trails of the leading Mustang. So it widely depends here on whether or not these two end up side by side on the run in towards turn 1, because if it is the case that Zalan Such has to try and run around the outside, he's left the inside all the way open, meaning if the Mustang gets away from him out through the 90, there stands equal chances for the Lexus to get up alongside him if he can perfectly mirror the performance of the 119. That is, of course, something we've seen leveraged on a number of occasions here in the Competizione Performance League, namely in the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series back in Season 1 by drivers like Giovanni Badiali. Most recently took a race win in the series, his first in that series at the Hungaroring in his drive with Chevrolet. We'll be picking back up with that series, of course, coming up into next week. Here on the Sunday, last of our broadcast week events, is the prelude to what is going to be a fantastic series we pick up on at Silverstone Round 1, coming up on the 7th of February. The Competizione Performance League World Series. Now, whilst we have this time during the formation lap, let's also recount some of the areas to worry about. This is first among them. Now, if you survive the perilous ascent up through the S's and out through the 90, you'll be finding yourself headstrong here. 27 cars in all on the run down through the inner loop chicane, introduced in 1992 as sort of a breaker point for the tremendous amount of speed one normally carries between turns 4 and 5. Now, they'll be heading into that section very quickly, and they'll be trying to get out just as fast and in an area that can almost barely encompass an available car's width of usable space, often having to clip onto the curbs, this can create some moments of serious tension on today's grid. Out through chute corner, we've seen plenty of side-by-side moves attempted here. It's a very bizarre corner on the track. On paper, it would definitely look like a location where a lot of overtakes can get done, and we've seen on occasion that a number of overtakes have been done here before. But it is a very awkward section of the track to master. It's often then the build-up in through here at turn 7, where we see moves often solidified. So we see then LeBay leading the pros. And taking a look here for the point of view of Charlie Harker. He'll be starting Division 2nd behind Lucas Mills. He starts 13th in this session, trying to catch on board with the Lamborghinis then at the forefront of the AM Division. We see here the number 7, Lucas Mills. I mean, it was a landslide qualifying turn for the number 7. Puts himself up in the land of the giants, as it were, in the pro category. Surrounded on all sides there, you can see in the charts to our bottom left. Not a single AM car in sight in terms of the data. Nearest to him would be Charlie Harker in that Mustang. He'll be leading that charge for the AMs. 2 race winners to be crowned then today for both Pro and AM. We'll catch on board then with Christian LeBay as we're not far from the starting line here. 2 hours of racing to follow here in Watkins Glen International at the Competizione Performance League Real World Racing Day. What was a fantastic qualifying session can only get better from here, but it is going to be certain chaos on the run down through into that Sector 1, on the run uphill in towards Sector 2 at the inner loop chicane. That's the danger zone, and we're seeing with 27 cars rolling down towards the line then, leading the charge. It'll be Lucas Mills from the AMs, but as we see here over the front row and leading in the pros is LeBay from Such down towards the line then. As we begin the lineup process, 2 hours against the clock here in Schuyler County, New York State, and we're green and racing here at Watkins Glen. A brilliant start then from the McLaren as Alan Such got the jump up over the Mustang, and we see there that Wright also gets the jump over Christian LeBay. It's 3 abreast down towards turn 1, and we see running around the outside goes that of Raphael Bayer to 2nd place, taking an early doors lead then. Zalan Such, Christian LeBay caught napping on the race start. I never thought I'd see the like. He's side by side then with Wright up through turns 2, 3 and 4. We see in the background things are getting a little bit hairy there in the back of the field. Up the S as we go, we see that it is traffic chaos down the back straight towards the inner loop chicane. We see here from Kevin Quain's point of view, just to give you a brief understanding from the driver's eye view of just how crowded this area of the track is on race start. A great start then by Zalan Such. You see the 2 Malwa Racing Mustangs side by side on the exit of turn 5 on the run in towards turn 6. Behind them is that of Vincent Simard and David Tangway. Charlie Harker just behind them as well. We see in the 72 Mustang, we're getting a look back up front here. We see with LeBay dropping down to 3rd place. Yellow flags are out to the number 12 of George Todd in trouble. We'll see if we can catch with the Ferraris here to see what has gone on for Todd at this time. So you see that heavy damages down at turn 6 for George Todd. Aero damaged at the front and rear. We see there spun around at turn 7. He's got absolutely no grip over the rear axle. That car is inoperable. He'll have to get that one to the pit lane as soon as possible. Back into green flags then until further notice. We see here, looking further up through the field, side by side between Matthew Shanowski and Kyle Jenkins. As Jenkins gets the leg up, that invites the door open to Ben Cheeseman. Makes a little bit of contact there with Matthew Shanowski on his way through to turn 10. Nonetheless, the 114 gets the leg up. We see the number 12 brings the yellow flags out again. George Todd back into the pit lane. You can see there having been towed in. So that is a disastrous start for the number 12. Curious to know as to precisely what has happened. We see then Artemi Yartsev separate from his fellow Ferrari, now with Lucas Milch behind him in the Lamborghini. Up in front of him there, Stefan Nikolai breaking away over towards his fellow Lexus in 4th place. Really, the topic of the day has been that start. Raphael Bayer to 2nd, Alan Such to 1st. Christian LeBay on his first race with Ford was caught napping on the race start there. I'm sure we were all thinking the race was going to start just a little bit later down the line on the run in towards the 90, but that was a very early door start. In the background there is trouble for Lucas Milch among several drivers on the exit of the inner loop chicane. We're watching here with Artemi Yartsev in the number 666. We see in the background We saw maybe what was the start of it. He got up over the curb a little bit too far on the inside. In the background there, carried another driver with him. I believe that was Quain. Yes, it was. The 607 was caught up in the wake there of the number 7. We'll see where that stacks them up, though. We'll try to catch on board here with Milch. You see here, this is just briefly some side-by-side action. Joey Fisher versus Clement Contalutam. Honda versus Lexus. Battle of the Japanese manufacturers. They're both being intercepted by Andrew Velkamp's number 616 Porsche. So getting a look here. And here is Milch. He's dropped in behind Petrakovsky. So he's fallen out of the podium in its entirety for the AM division, I was about to say, not the AM championship, of course, being a single race, no championship to be considered. That has been disaster. One slip over the inner loop chicane, and that has completely unraveled what was a sensational qualifying performance by Lucas Milch of Black Nitro Racing. So looking back up towards the front of the field, we'll just quickly catch on board here with Rafael Bayer. As you can see, he is being intercepted by Christian Lebay. Half a second between the Lamborghini and the Ford at the forefront of fighting today. Meanwhile, Zalan Such has took the baton and ran with it. It was a sensational start from the 998. The Hungarian talent behind the wheel just rockets away on the race start. Down through the inner loop chicane we go. We can see things get very, very close now in the fight of second place. Bayer versus Lebay. Down through turn 5. Seeing on board then with Bayer. Mustang looming over his rear. Taking a look then past the first 5 seconds. We do have another yellow flag out. It's for the number 21, Samuel Bell, in trouble. Trying to catch on board there with the Ferrari, but we can only see from the rear view. Trying to catch back on in then with the 21. He gets back onto the track. Incident down at the inner loop chicane up in front of him. The 666 is caught out. That's, I believe, yes, Artemi Yartsev. And look at the scope of the damage on the 666 Ferrari. We only caught from the back end camera there for the number 21, exactly what went on, but Artemi Yartsev has been clattered through the inner loop chicane. It is disaster for Ferrari, as both he and the number 12 of George Todd, in the scope of only 2 laps, have been flushed out of the top 10. Yartsev back to the pit lane. Could that be the end of the road then for the Estonian talent? Had such a good qualifying session, but all to the same here, as he found for the driver he shared a row with, George Todd. Both of them relegated to the pit lane early doors of today's race. 5 minutes and already 2 major casualties. We see up the inside then in the fight of second in Bayer versus Lebay. Lebay gets the leg up over Bayer, but Bayer's got momentum past turn 1. Now in the run up through turns 2, 3, and 4, Lebay will be to the outside, then the inside, then the outside again. These two carrying it 2 abreast. Lamborghini versus Ford now through turn 4. Heading towards the inner loop chicane, something's got to give here, and we know maneuverability is in the quarters of Rafael Bayer, but can Christian Lebay hope to dig deep for an overtake through the inner loop chicane? He goes late onto the brakes and holds it over the nose of the Lamborghini. A great move by Lebay. What's the rebuttal then by Rafael Bayer through turn 5? Glues himself to the back end of the Mustang on the run in towards turn 6 at the chute is his next available opportunity to go at the inside, but we see covering him off is the 119. That's a great move by Lebay on the early doors recovery to a less than ideal start. He's 3 seconds spare of Zalan Such at the forefront of this race. The the 998, the double 98 is up towards turn 7 and 8. Seeing the pit lane as well, having come in, the Honda of Clement Contalutam, the 511 into the pit lane. We see further down the line, continued fighting towards the back of the top 10, Kevin Quain. We can see significant damages there up over the nose. He's up ahead of Jorge Martinez and Richard Cecil. Behind them, Brooklyn Donkin. Ben Schiessman also up and ahead of Carl Jenkins. We see Matthew Shanowski just outside the top 15 there fighting with Jenkins. We see as well, surrounding these fights, we're seeing potential side-by-side action here. Wright versus Quain. Quain backs out of a move to the inside. That does open the doors up, though, for Jorge Martinez. Looks to try and get side-by-side. Now it's 2 Porsches in the stead of a fight of 11th, with Richard Cecil getting the leg up on Martinez. He's boxed in there, but the same story applies. Whilst he's in the slipstream with a much faster Mustang, Cecil was trying to get some side draft and just couldn't make any headwind of it down towards turn 1. So a formidable start to this race, and we're still seeing fighting going on for second place at this time. Lebay versus Bayer. Stefan Nicolai off by his lonesome in 4th place. Carl Martel fighting with Vincent Simard behind him. An even closer fight here. David Tanguay versus Charlie Harker, who moves into the lead of the AM division. It's been a huge mix-up as well. Of course, two heavy players in the AM division for this race were knocked out effectively. We saw trouble for Milch, and then we saw trouble for Bell. So now that leaves Harker and Martinez up onto the front row of the AMs in this race. We see here Martinez still defending away from Richard Cecil. The number 5 looks up the inside on the number 1. The 1 gives him space. Number 5 and number 1 still side by side. It'll be Martinez to the inside. So he's going to have to get very ambitious on the brakes here to hold on to 11th place over Richard Cecil. But it looks like by the long way around the outside, Richard Cecil might just have this one in the bag on the exit of turn 7. We see that the yellow flags are back out again. This time for the 669, it's Matthew Shinosky in trouble. And I think he's been fully spun around. At turn 6, he's facing the wrong way in the Mustang. Fortunately, has come out, relatively speaking, unscathed. Back on board with Cecil V. Martinez for 11th place. These two absolutely inseparable in the third sector. Watching from behind is Brooklyn Donkin. Great recovery there by Martinez. That could have been disaster for the number 1, but he does drop in behind the 5. Richard Cecil into 11th. Holds on to that one, and now Martinez is vulnerable. The door's been kicked open there for Brooklyn Donkin to have a go for 12th place. Behind him, we see Ben Cheeseman with Lamborghini. Down towards turn 1 we go. We'll catch on with these two in a moment's time. As we take a look to some of the nearby fights on this grid, namely the elephant in the room inside of that top 10 has been the fight going on between Charlie Harker and David Tanguay. Ford and Bentley clashing heads there as the fight for second dissipates between LeBay and Bayer. That gap most recently reported at 1.5 seconds. So a mixed bag today here for Black Nitro Racing. Well, Rafael Bayer has had a fantastic start to things, finds himself still glued to a podium. Lucas Mills drops out of the runnings there for the lead of the AM division. And I believe, looking at it there for the number 7, he might actually very well be out of this race. That's left the throne vacant then for Charlie Harker in the number 72 Mustang. Up in front of them, ongoing fighting between two members of the Maloir Racing team. We can see even further up front there, getting up and around that. I believe that's Alfie Hughes. Here's Vincent Simard and Carl Martel. We see quite a few drivers taking that first pit stop right off the bat. Now, I think I can roughly gauge what the strategy is for a lot of these drivers. We see Clement Quentin-Lutram, Thomas Petrakovsky, and Alfie Hughes. 3 drivers in particular to have done this already. Now, unless it was damages that brought them in, I think we can roughly gauge the next 49 minutes. They'll be back in again for their final pit stop. So they've took a bit of an early sacrifice to performance in today's race so that they can pick up for it later by effectively turning this into a 1 stop that they just have to start from the back of. When you frame it like that, it does make this a rather cheeky strategy. We see, though, Alfie Hughes has been caught up in the wake of things, intercepted by the number 30 of David Tanguay. Hughes was unable to get out of the way through the 90. The 30 descended upon him like a shadow there, and that was quite frightening for him. We see that ongoing fight. Tanguay versus Harker. This is 7th place up for grabs. Up in front of them, Simard and Martel still clashing heads for control of the last of the top 5s. Out through the inner loop chicane, you can just see the difference there between Ford and Bentley. I mean, it's remarkable. Meanwhile, in the fight of Martinez v Cecil, that has now shifted on its head to put the golden Porsche back up into 11th, and that could be 10th place here. We see floundering performance through turn 5 with that heavily damaged front end off of the 607, and I believe, yes, looking at it there, Jorge Martinez moves up to 10th and Quain down to 11th. Could that be down to 12th here with the advance of the number 5, Richard Cecil, on his tail here? Meanwhile, behind them, we see the last interval was very close by between Brooklyn Donkin and Ben Cheeseman. Two recognisable names there for the teams that they represent, Euro Titans Endurance and 5-Star Esports. We've seen them on plenty of occasions. Most recently saw them on the same stretch of tarmac over on the Console Endurance Series' 3 Hours of Imola. You see there for Cheeseman, still in pursuits of Donkin. Up in front of them is that ongoing war between Porsche and Ford. The number 5, latest to try and have a go here on the 607 as the number 1 breaks away. Still Division 2nd. Up in Division 1st for the AMs, we still continue to see fighting between that of Charlie Harker and David Tanguay. Up in front of them, slightly more civil affair by comparison to things. These two not looking to push each other around too hard here. They're on the same team. Vincent Simard and Karl Martel just at the back of the top 5. Looking for nearby gaps then. We can see quite a few still forming up, but I think definitely the elephant in the room is Cecil v. Quain. We'll try to catch actually on board with Richard Cecil. As we see there, Rafael Bayer is spun around at turn 5. He drops out of position there to Stefan Nicolai, who moves up to 3rd. Bayer's back out on track. Looks like no damage, but he just got a little upset through turn 5. The Lamborghini stepped away. So there was no other cars involved in that, so saying that he was turned around is a little bit presumptive on our end, but yes, he still technically was turned around by physics on the exit of turn 5. That does drop him right into the iron sights now of Karl Martel in the 5th position of the grid. Meanwhile, Vincent Simard drops away. Now, to pick up on another story here, Christian Lebay is only separate from Zalan Such by about 1.2 seconds. These two are scheduled for a fight at the front of the pack. We'll be catching on with them not far from now. We see just a glimmer of that here with the 119's point of view. 1.2 seconds from Zalan Such. The both of them held up by George Todd as part of lap traffic. That was, by looks of it there, that was Stephen Black into the wall as we just caught on board with one of the cars towards the back of the field. What on earth happened? So we were on board with Shinosky in the 669. We were looking around the field there. Stephen Black just barrels off track at turn 5. Very bizarre as to how that's happened. The 707 looks relatively speaking still functional, so he's on a way down towards turn 7. Meanwhile, yellow flag's back out for the number 3, and we see here it's contact between Harker and Tanguay. Yellow flags still persist for the number 3 further down the line, but we saw there that was contact between the pair. Harker continues upfield. We'll see on the run down towards turn 1 here. This was the incident in question. Just knocked there the rear left and ran with it. Was that his move to make in the first place there? That's a bit of a strange question for that of Charlie Harker. Now pushes David Tanguay down into the iron sights of right and the number 54. So far, it's been bedlam here in Watkins Glen. Plenty of action and plenty of drama. Looking around that field now, we were in the pursuit here to try and locate the number 5 Porsche, of which I am told is still fighting with Kevin Quain at this time. That's Richard Cecil. We see behind them much closer action at hand with the arrival of Brooklyn Donkin and Ben Cheeseman there. A two-pronged defensive from Euro Titans and 5-star. The number 17 and the 114 pursuing Richard Cecil in towards turn 7. As a matter of fact, I feel inclined to get on board with the BMW of Brooklyn Donkin because as the man in the middle here, he has got really the front row tickets to both sides of the action here with Ben Cheeseman trying his hardest to get up and around him. You can see the Lamborghini very enthusiastic on the brakes down through to turn 8. We see the 707 of Stephen Black is back into the pit lane. We see Cheeseman looking up the inside. Can he find the gap for it past the apex here at turn 9? Not this time around. In towards turn 10 we go. This is some fantastic fighting here for 13th place. Bear in mind, we've just crossed over the opening 15 minutes of racing here, so whilst we'll stay on board with the fight of 13th, here's your current scope of the grid so far. Zalan Such in the lead of this race by 1.6 seconds. Christian Lebay second with the fastest lap. Stefan Nicolai to 3rd. Rafael Bayer down to 4th. Had a great start, but it fell apart down through turn 5. Nonetheless, he's still inside of the top 5 and ahead at this time of Karl Martel in 5th. Vincent Simard in 6th. Charlie Harker now in the lead of the AM division in 7th, with David Tanguay in 8th. Wright 9th and Martinez in 10th place. Quain in 11th, Cecil 12th, Donkin 13th on your screens at the moment, still fighting with Cheeseman in 14th place, Jenkins 15th, Bell 16th, Velkamp 17th, Fisher 18th, Potvin 19th, Shinosky 20th, Black 21st, Petrokovsky in 22nd, Kontalutam in 23rd, and Todd in 24th. 3 DNFs then in the opening 15 minutes as it has been slaughter here in New York State. Up in front of them, Richard Cecil is definitely getting his elbows out now in a pursuit of the 607. Let's not wait any longer. Let's go and catch on board with either angle of this. We see here with Kevin Quain's point of view, Richard Cecil right behind him on his chances to have a go for 11th place. Glued to the back end of that Mustang. Runs out wide, though. Of course, we must consider there is that added detriment of severe damage over the nose cone. Yellow flags out in Sector 2. The start of Sector 2 is the number 14 runs into trouble at turn 5. Not the last time that's happened today, and definitely not the first. I think that term's supposed to go the other way around, but still, you know, point withstands. It is definitely not going to be the last time we see that today. Down through to turn 10, still on with the 607. This is in the fight for 11th place. Kevin Quain versus Richard Cecil on the run in through to turn 11. Behind them, still the ongoing fight there between Brooklyn Donkin and Ben Cheeseman. You see things are starting to get quite active between the two here. Cecil looking to go up and around the outside. Could that be to a late apex? Has invited in that previous battle, though, with Brooklyn Donkin and Ben Cheeseman. Now this becomes a four-man fight for 11th place. And this is all fantastic news for Jorge Martinez. He's up the road at this time in the number one. You can see him there in the foreground. That bright golden Porsche is now up by 3.8 seconds, and that gap is only set to rise as Kevin Quain redistributes his efforts to fight off an approaching three-car war party. Out through turn 5 we go then. Richard Cecil still vying his chances, looking up the inside and towards turn 6, was so close to contact between himself and the 607. Fortunately avoids it, but this is still the sign of things to come here. The number 5 is really getting his elbows out now. He is not afraid to start making risky moves. We see that very nearly cost him his own performance today as he steps out wide through turn 7. This is inviting in the BMW and the Lamborghini of the fight we were just on board with a moment ago as we catch back on board, this time with Brooklyn Donkin. He's got front row seats then to that fight of 11th, and he's actively part of it as well. .707 appears to be making its way back out on track. That's Stephen Black. We see the number 28, though, is in trouble. That's Rafael Bayer. Catching on board then with Bayer. You can see trouble on the exit of the 90 as he drops in behind the back of the top 10. Jorge Martinez moves up to 9th. This is disastrous news for the 28. It's gone from bad to worse here as he drops not only out of the top 5, but out of the top 10. Actually, no, hang on. It could very well be the case. No, he is still 10th place in that case, because you can see the 607 is behind him at this time. So not just out of the top 10 yet. And I'm quite surprised to see that in the scope of what has been now 2 major incidents for the 28, neither of which has yielded any scope of damage. You can see from the look of that Lamborghini, it is still as pristine as when it left the paddock earlier on today. You've got to hand it to him here. I have no idea how he's been able to be so lucky to have 2 major incidents, neither of which to even put a scratch on that Huracan. Either that or the Huracan is made of, I don't even know what, Kevlar, perhaps. Bulletproof, that machine. So that has massively shifted things up here. It's forced Lamborghini out of the top 5 in its entirety. Now the top 5 dominated by 3 manufacturers, Lexus, Ford, and McLaren. We can see on a wider scope here, that top 10 is dominated in large part by only 2 manufacturers, the most numerous among them Lexus and Ford. We see sprinklings there, McLaren, Bentley, Porsche, and Lamborghini. In terms of the nearest fights on track, there was the scope of it for some time of Quain v Cecil. We see in the last interval it was 1.1 seconds, and then also trailing on their midst was 9/10 of a second. Off from Brooklyn Donkin. We see that gap has now opened up 1.5 seconds away from Cecil as he now draws into just over half a second away from Kevin Quain. So now it balances itself back out. We're back in a 2 fights isolated from one another. And as I say that, you see here Ben Cheeseman advancing up through turns 2, 3, and 4, super close to the wall there in the Lamborghini. So catching back on board then with the drivers in and amongst these fights. We see here with Brooklyn Donkin. Now, there is also that consideration of the fight going on up in front of them there. Richard Cecil versus Kevin Quain. Looking up the inside again. So close to contact. It was contact between the pair. There was a quarter spin and then bounces back up over the nose of the number 5 into the wall. Goes Richard Cecil after his tap there. goes all manner of sour with the 607. We saw exactly what was going on there. So we went up the inside, all the way hugging the inside, a little bit of understeer, knocked once, then hugs the inside again, then it slides back in over his nose, and then it all just goes downhill from that point onwards. You see then for Richard Cecil, flushed out to the back of the top 15 with damage over his nose. That could be an indication of an early pit stop. So what was normally going to be a conventional strategy for drivers today was pit at the hour and 30 mark and then at the 30-minute mark, giving them about an hour in between and then 30 minutes on either side of it to make that 2-hour structure up. Now, of course, we've seen some drivers pit very early on the hopes that in the next 36 minutes they pit for the last time and go for the full hour of racing to the checkered flag. Now, that's a long-winded comeback strategy, and it definitely can work, but that's on the grounds one lives to see that play out. We see coming into the pit lane then, immediate reaction by the number 5. He's coming in just shy of what is going to be 6 minutes off of that ideal strategy, so he'll just have to be playing for keeps there, making up for 6 minutes of effectively lost time on track. You see here, Cheeseman and Donkin now on board with Cheeseman's point of view as he eyes up a move here into 11th over Brooklyn Donkin. Now, these two have been done as solid by that incident up in front of them, with the 607 now behind them and the number 11 out of commission for the time being. Number 5, I should say, not number 11. I don't know where the number 11 came from. The number 5 out of commission. We see that great move then by Cheeseman up to 11th. Maybe that's where the number 11 was coming from. Number 5 out of commission for the time being, and the 607 behind them. That's given these two the opportunity to fight for 11th place. That's where we were getting at, not going crazy. 1 hour, 35 minutes left to go then. Coming up on the first 30 minutes of today's race, we cut onto another fight here. Carl Martel versus Vincent Simard. Ford versus Lexus. There's been somewhat of a running theme on the grid today. So cutting between these two here, we see the aftermath of that fight for Cheeseman v Donkin. Now as Donkin actually starts to drop down a peg in towards the iron sights there of Kevin Quain, peeling into the pit lane after a great opening stint. Ben Cheeseman with 5-star esports number 114 Lamborghini. Very rare sight indeed in the 5-star lineup to see Lamborghini make its return into commission. Maybe perhaps the trial run for the team. Of course, we do not yet know their plans coming up into 2026 proper on ACC. Now, there is a huge wad of cars piling up in this region here, and that's because we've got a mix of lapped traffic and cars fighting for position. Shinosky versus Pot. Then around the outside goes Matthew Shinosky in the number 669. The number 35 of Didier Potvin still following on his trails there. We're getting the better run out through turn 11. Shinosky breaks away to 18th place. Up in front of him there is Petrokovsky in 21st. He took his very early first pit stop in this race. About, looking at here, about 16 minutes ago, roughly. See another fight potentially on the bookings here. 3 cars to be considered amongst them, as we see up in front. That fight for 4th place still raging on between Martel and Simard. It's Charlie Harker versus David Tangway versus Wright. 3-way fight there for 6th place. Bear in mind, Harker still at the forefront of the AM division. If he's to hold on to this position, he'll be taking a race win in the AM category later on today in about an hour and 30's time. Hour and 33 to be more precise. We see another fight here. This is the one that Donkin was fearing being involved in. Bear in mind, Kevin Quain, dealing with considerable front-end damage, is still able to wage war in the top 15. We see signaling in, so going in now is Brooklyn Donkin. The question is, will Kevin Quain choose to follow? No being the answer. Donkin into the pit lane. Quain stays out. So a lot of drivers are gunning for that strategy we mentioned before, where they give it the first 30 or so minutes, come in, and then wait until the last 30 or so minutes of the race and come in again. Let's go and catch on board with some of the other fights here. We obviously have been speaking at length for the build-up into this leading fight. We can see now separate by just a second. We also do have to report their yellow flags down at turn 11. That's Stephen Black in more trouble than the last time we saw him, trying to catch on with the Ferrari then to see what is the current scope of things. We see they're stranded at turn 11. Is he trying to go into the pit lane? I'm not entirely sure. He's just stuck there on the end of the track. He's still got power in the engine, so there's no concerns over engine power, but he's just not able to get up in the front. Not in the front of this race, but he's just struggling to get back in. But there, Stephen Black brings it into the pit lane. We see Andrew Veldkamp is in for his first pit stop of 2 today. That was a very bizarre incident indeed. So having a look here with some of the other fights going on. Now we want to try and catch on board with, we were trying to catch with Martel v Simard as one of the fights coming up in this session, but obviously with a lot of drivers making considerations now for their first pit stops of today's race. How much longer can this one hope to last? At least an extra lap by looks of it there as they continue on track into lap 16. Meanwhile, up front, we are starting to see closing in on the race lead is Christian Lebay on his first race with Ford. Now, this is ahead of his first season coming up with Ford. Will both be underway next weekend in the arrival of the Competizione Performance League World Series and also Season 5 of the NLRL Sunday League. Both of which he's set to commit full-time with Ford. Actually, hang on a moment. I do remember seeing somewhere, and I'll have to double-check my notes just a tad here to double-check if in this series he'll be running with Ford. Because I also saw rumours start to circulate he'd be competing with Bentley. No, it has been reconfirmed. He will go with Ford in the World Series. And this is an exciting new chapter here for Lebay. Now, we've seen him in a few different vehicles before his move to Ford. We've seen him most prolifically with Aston Martin in the V12 Vantage, was one of the most competitive drives on the Sunday League grid for 4 seasons on the trot, was in championship competition, took Season 1's championship without ever seeing a race win, and in the 43 races or so having ran of the Sunday League until Season 5, he had been a routine competitor in almost all of them. Still yet to have found his own race win, with the chances here with Ford to see it in Season 5, and here's hoping for it. Moreover, we've also seen him with Bentley over in his time shared with his fellow compatriots at the Malois Racing Team in the NLRL Console Endurance Series. We've also seen him, of course, in the Jaguar, in the aptly named Jaguar GT3 Revival Series. Not that there was much choice for vehicle in the matter, I'm sure, but still, that's the 3 GT3s we've primarily seen Lebay behind the wheel of. To see him get behind the wheel of a car a lot more conventional and in choice as the 7th generation Ford Performance Mustang definitely does raise some interesting questions. Now, the longest time we've known here for Lebay as to why he'd never go and pick up a car like a McLaren or like a Ford or like a Ferrari is that he preferred the older machines because it was more of a challenge to drive, it was more engaging to drive, and in rough translation of the words, it was too easy of a choice to go with something like Ford. But now, evidently, as competition continues to ramp up around him, Lebay is willing to throw the gloves off and move to Ford. And right now, we've seen, while it was a bit of a rocky start to today's race, he has not lost any of the steam he's carried over a legacy of competition with various different manufacturers, primarily British manufacturers. As we've seen, those last 3 manufacturers, all British. This is his first time in GT3 at least, behind the wheel of an American vehicle. Normally, he reserves his choice of American vehicles for GT4, where his often #1 choice, and I don't think we've ever seen him in anything else, was the 6th generation Chevrolet Camaro. We see here, speaking of Ford's American machinery, we see the number 99 Mustang Martel still fighting with Vincent Simard. This is for 4th place on track at the moment. The Lexus trailing in his midst at this time. An hour and 28 left to go in the session. Bear in mind, quite a few drivers still yet to have taken their first pit stops. We saw most recently some moves to the pit lane from Andrew Veldkamp and Brooklyn Donkin. We see for these two, how much longer can their fight hope to last in the face of these first pit stops? We see up in front of them there, having taken his first pit stop, is Ben Cheeseman in the 114 Lamborghini. We'll be coming to you quite a few times here at Watkins Glen over the next couple of months. Now, of course, we've got coming up in the Competizione Performance League World Series. We'll be heading back to Watkins Glen over the course of this month and next. And also into April, we've got a special event coming up. Can't confirm everything just yet, but it does pertain to a long-standing partnership we've had for some time with the High Caliber Community League. Do look forward to discussing more of that in detail. We'll pick up that conversation on the next round of the Multi-Class Championship, set to pick up next Saturday. So you see here, side-by-side action. Simard has got the run over Martel down towards the inner loop chicane, on board with the 120 as he takes later onto the brakes there into the inner loop chicane. Through the inner loop we go to the outer loop at turn 5 and moves up into 4th place. We're still on board here with that fight of 4th place. Still waiting to see what the verdict is then after the first 30 minutes of racing as to how long they're willing to drag this fight out before either of them take a look into the pit lane. We saw in the background as well was brief contact with the wall on the exit of turn 9. That was for Charlie Harker, currently at the forefront of the AM fight. We see into the pit lane goes neither of our two competitors for the top 4 positions. This is scrapping in and around the back of the top 5. 4th place most recently having been taken by a lofty move there up through the inner loop chicane. It took some serious guts to commit to that, but that puts Vincent Simard in a 4th with Lexus. Currently makes a Lexus 3 and 4. Now looking up front, we're starting to see things close in at a rate of knots here between LeBay and Zuch. So this is going to be an exciting one. These two have clashed heads on a number of occasions through the Triple Crown Enduro Series. And as we check in on board with Christian LeBay, hunting down Zalan Zuch, who had a fantastic start, second to none there. One of the greatest starts we've ever seen in GT3 racing. He had him sleeping off of the start line and already took very early doors initiative there. In the matchup we've seen historically, McLaren has struggled for acceleration over Ford. Today has been Zalan Zuch's day. We'll see how long this is able to rage on for before either of these two yields to the pit lane, much in the same stead as we saw in the fight for 4th place earlier on. That, by the way, is still going on. You see then for LeBay hunting down Zalan Zuch. It has been a case here for the Hungarian talent up front that he's had a much easier drive of things there after taking that early lead, and you can see he's peeling into the pit lane looking for that undercut strategy over LeBay. Leaves the number 119 out by his lonesome to re-inherit the position that he started this race from. Does raise many an interesting question. We also see into the pit lane at this time goes Kevin Quain in the 607. We'll see if either of these two commit to a drive into the pit lane. So we see that Stefan Nikolai stays out on track. Round turn 11 goes Vincent Simard. Carl Martel follows in suit there. Charlie Harker looks to be coming into the pit lane. We see there into the pits out through turn 11 goes Harker. Drops out towards the back of the top 10, leaving Jorge Martinez to inherit the lead of the AM division. Now, bear in mind, there was a very close wad of cars behind him, so strategy has to be perfect in today's race. Bear in mind as well, it's open strategy, so as far as we've been led to believe, there is no mandate on fuel or tyres for this race. So these stops really only scale in proportion to the needs and wants of the driver. So if they feel like they can go another stint on the same tyres, they can have a considerably shorter stop as they only consider fuel. And we see already making his way out Zalan Zuch from the front of the field, now down to what appears to be, at the scope of this, about 9th place. Actually, that drops down to 10th there with Kyle Jenkins just up in front of him in the 113. Harker in the pit lane then, still yet to have dropped off of his jacks and made his way out. And there we do see it, completing his first of 2 mandatory pit stops in today's race. He's on his way back out. We see going on at the moment, it's birthed a new fight inside of the top 5 here. Wright versus Bayer, who's been on a real revenge drive since his incidents a few laps ago. And then at the forefront of that, fighting to hold on to top 5 positions at this time, the Bentley of David Tangway. We'll look to catch on board then with the Lexus or the Lamborghini for that matter, as we do see here. Stefan Nikolai still holds on a second. We'll see what the verdict is here. For the number 100, he stays out. Vincent Simard now having broken away from Carl Martel. Simard does not yet consider his run to the pit lane, neither does Martel. We see then on with Wright. Following closely in the stead then of David Tanguay. The number 35, that's Didier Potvin, has been towed to the pit lane in his BMW. The number 35 looks to be in serious trouble. Watch here the fight of 5th place go on. So you see there the formidable sound of that 5.4 litre. He's broken away from the Lamborghini behind him. Rafael Bayer separate from these two by about 9/10 of a second through the inner loop chicane we go. Now this was an area of the track that the Lamborghini was already struggling for stability on. You can see taking things a little bit more cautiously there. The number 28 stays with. It's gained just a little bit of that time back in the corners over these two at the front of the fight for the top 5. Number 35 has a stop-go 30-second penalty from race control. So that's for Didier Potvin. We saw him towed to the pit lane a moment ago. He's re-emerged now with the stop-go 30 to serve. 113 in the pit lane at this time, so is the 59. We see that the 119 has come into the pit lane as well, so Christian Lebay is in as we continue to see here fighting in and around the top 5. Now, if they stay out for another lap, they'll be promoted up a few positions. The number 707 looks to be either in trouble out of turn 11 there, or by looks of it on the radar, looks to be coming into the pit lane. We'll see which is the case. It's the latter. As we see, the 707 is in the pit lane. We're still watching here with the 54 on with the man in the middle, right in the Lexus. Tanguay up in front. We see now was previously out back. Looking to get alongside him is Rafael Bayer. Let's see if we can go and catch with the Lamborghini just before the run of the 90. We see there. Huge snap of oversteer on the exit of the 90. We saw him snap the wheel violently from one end to the other just to keep it from spinning. It kind of just does go to show how right against the ragged edge he's got this car set up. Again, drawing back some analogy there to the Lancia Stratos. We made that comparison between the Huracan and the Stratos some time ago, and you can really see it in the way that he has to drive this car around track and how feverish it is to try and fight you back at every step of the way. But on the very small chances, and we've seen historically, Bayer's among them, where he can control that Lamborghini without it biting its head off. It can flow like mercury around this track. It is really quite a phenomenal machine, but one with great difficulty to manage. We see the 511 was in trouble for a little while there, out through the 90. And as a matter of fact, we are curious to see what is going on there for Clément Quentin-Lutraman. You can see serious scopes of damage by the looks of it there for the Honda. That's an easy yellow flag. That's no more a white flag than it is a yellow flag. Taking a look at things at the moment, and now this is just weighing in the difference there between Lebay and Such. Now, in difference in strategy, Lebay has got Such by about 2.1 seconds. Now, that's set to close in. You can see those two still very close to one another at this time. The yellow flags are still very much so out for the number 511. Getting up and around him there by looks of it, that was the number 120. Currently up and ahead of Brooklyn Donkin. In between them at this time was Thomas Petrakowski in the number 14. Meanwhile, since that point, we see that Martel's into the pit lane. So is Jorge Martinez. Now, this is him trying to get the leg up over Charlie Harker. That's the main target here for that number 1. He wants to be in the lead of the AM category by all means necessary. We've Ben Hart joining us in chat there. How's the race been? Very chaotic from the start here. We're just over 40 minutes into this race, 2 hours of racing overall. You see coming into the pits in the background there, that looked to have been Matthew Shanowski into the pit lane. Very, very rough start for some in today's race. We're seeing that carrying on past the first sort of quarter of this race, still ongoing fights. Namely, we see here on screen at the moment between Wright and Bayer. Now this has been pushed up into the contention of a podium. Under strategy, they'll fall in back behind that of Such and Lebay. We see up through the inside then at turn 7. Great move by Rafael Bayer with Lamborghini. What's the fight back chance then from the Lexus of Wright? Let's go and catch on board with these two on the run up through to turn 8. Maneuverability, the A game of the Lamborghini. And as mentioned before, if he's able to hold his nerve with this car for just long enough for it to not bite his head off, it can properly go around this track. A very dangerous car, but one that when handled correctly can work super, super effectively through a grid. It's what makes it such a split choice here, often geared more towards experienced drivers. You either start off and stay with the Lamborghini or you move to it once you know you can handle everything before it. In the case of Bayer, I've not yet seen him in another car in GT3 that wasn't manufactured by Lamborghini, so I'm inclined to believe that he's been a day one for the Huracan for some time at least. Number 511, that's Clement Contalutram, and that heavily damaged Honda is now back into the pit lane, so I'm told. Taking a look then around the field, we'll go to catch on board with the, I want to see what's going on there in the scope of the 119 and the 998. Those two separate by a second and a half. And now that's flipped on its head. A great start in terms of strategy for Christian Labbe, playing the first piece here, or playing the first move in this long-winded game of chess that is this 2 hours race with open-ended strategy. And that's given him just that extra bit of breathing space over Zalan Such. It's put everything on its head there. Such came in first to leave Labbe out by his lonesome, but evidently that has proven to be a decision not worth making, as it has now dropped him in behind by 1.5 seconds. It has not only reversed the gap in the opposite direction, it has actually expanded upon that before these two began this run of the pit lane. Seeing here the number 30, close proximity to another driver there, but that's only with that of Stephen Black. The lapped number 707, evidently not a huge fan of AWS, slammed those signs, my goodness. You see here the number 30, David Tangray, possibly to inherit the race lead for a short time here, as we see Stefan Nikolai, the number 100 Lexus, is into the pit lane, so that leaves the Bentley out by its lonesome. Or for not much longer, actually, when you take a look at how close the approaching pack is from behind them. Rafael Bayer and Wright chasing him down in towards turn one. Taking a look around the track, Charlie Harker soon to possibly fight here with Brooklyn Donkin. 1.3 seconds between the 72 and the number 17. Up in front of them was a considerable amount of dust kicked up in their eyes. It was either by the 120 or the 99, Vincent Simard or Carl Martel. So you see here on board with Donkin on the run in towards turn 9. Speaking of the, we spoke earlier of the number 30. He just made his way around the 511 Honda down through turn 5. And we'll look to catch on board then with one of those three at the forefront of fighting here. We'll try to catch on board with the one with front row tickets to it all. We'll leave you on board just a moment here with the number 54 of Wright. We'll return to you in just a second. Well, just before we get up from the microphone, the number 100 has been dished out a stop go. That's for Stefan Nikolai. So that's a huge impact there for Lexus inside of that top 5. So still on board here with Wright, as he's now started to become more and more distant as it stands there between Bayer and Tangray. Those two caught up in each other's slipstream. We see out back Vincent Simard and Stefan Nikolai, two Lexus cars just outside of the top 10 right now. Simard with considerable front end damage. You can see there the scope of things. The car bordering on inoperable. We can see just the amount of understeer that's generating on the run down through turn 8. There could even be the argument, yes, you can see it definitely right there, is significant steering damage. How on earth is he able to get that car operable. He's having to hold it. That's trying to do the maths there. That's just a little over 90 degrees to the left. It's so just pardon me. Severe steering damage and aero damage incurred there for Simard. He's into the pit lane. Following him is Stefan Nikolai, who has to serve a stop, go 30 for speeding in the pit lane. That gives up position to Kyle Jenkins. We also see that Samuel Bell is in the pit lane as well. The number 511 Honda in trouble yet again. It's Clément Quentin-Lutram with Honda. Let's get a look on board with him. You see there. Last time we saw him, he was in a barely operable state on the run up through Sector 1, having to limp his way around the track. We can see he's actually caught between Lebay and Such there on his front and rear. Stephen Black alongside him on the run in towards turn 10. And this is traffic chaos for these two. Alain Such makes contact with Quentin-Lutram. This is a huge turnaround for him. The 511 into the wall. The 998 tried absolutely everything to make his way up through, but that was a seemingly impossible gap to have made up. We saw the 511 was trying to get clear of the 707, but then drifting out wide. The 998 slams into the 511. Nearly hits him a second time as he hits the tyre wall down between turns 10 and 11. So yellow flags still persist in this session. Raphael Bayer into the pit lane. Stefan Nikolai still in as well. We see coming in Clément Quentin-Lutram in what has now become a serious fracture point in the results for today's race. Now, that's fantastic news if you're Christian Lebay, because now your main adversary, Alain Such, has been forced down by quite the wedge there. 6.7 seconds at the last interval. Raphael Bayer into the pit lane. Having served his first of 2 mandatory pit stops, we've still yet to see either from the leading Bentley of David Tanguay. Wright still behind him. Lebay some distance away at this time. The car we saw behind that of Wright was the 607 of Kevin Quain. Simard still on his way out of the pit lane, has just finished up on that pit stop, but I'm not entirely sure what is going on for him there. Is he still having the car repaired? I mean, it looks likely. Car looks to still be up on its jacks. It's said that he's cleared the second pit stop. Now he drops off of it. What has gone on there? Car failing to start. Something is clearly awry in the number 120. So, getting on to the halfway mark of the race, not too far from now, we see nearby fighting going on here in the second of 3 stints today. Martinez versus Donkin. This is for 8th place on the field. Bear in mind, Martinez, currently second in the AM division, is up and alongside Brooklyn Donkin. This is in the scope for 8th place. Later on the brakes for the number 1. Can it be for Jorge Martinez on the exit of the heel? Yes, it can be. Up towards turn 9. A fantastic move from the number 1. Up the long way around the number 17. Brooklyn Donkin drops down to 9th. That was a fantastic move to have caught on the latter end of there with Jorge Martinez. So currently, taking a look into the most recent scopes of it, we see Nikolai into the pit lane once again. Now, this is a curious one. We see minor front end damage. Nothing that screams to us that something is severely wrong with the car, but we can see a lot more of that damage is focused over the right-hand side of his car, less so on the front. So he's took quite the tank slapper to the right-hand side. And that'll be up over the passenger side of this car. He's into the pit lane, evidently to fix those damages. There actually very could be the chances that there is steering damage. You can see that the Pirelli's a little bit wonky as he got to a stop, whether or not that was just his steering angle beforehand or not. The ongoing fight then at the forefront of things. Wright versus Tanguay. Behind them, Quain. So not far from the halfway mark of this day of racing here. And it has been a very, very bizarre one indeed for what has been effectively an exhibition round to sort of gauge the timing and responses to what is later going to become that of the World Series here on Competizione Performance League, set to start on the 7th of February. What makes that unique is, of course, the shorter qualifying session than today's and 3 40-minute races back-to-back. That's going to create quite a lot of opportunities there, make for a very lively grid in the long run. We'll hope to see how that pans out in Silverstone this coming weekend. As we get to the end of the current weekend we're in, though, things are still looking lively on today's grid. So you see then, Kevin Quain showing great signs of enthusiasm to want to get around and unlap himself from Wright and Tanguay. I don't think he's going to be waiting for many opportunities after this one. I think he's hoping these two come in to the pit lane. Of course, neither of them have yet for their first mandatory pit stop. Still left wondering what is the strategy for the 30 and the 54 at this time. They've gone super long in the first part. Now, we've seen races before come down to moments like these where it's been very bizarre strategies up front. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We'll see exactly what's the case for these two. Do either of them take a look into the pit lane at this time? No. Being the simple answer. Narrowly escapes touching the wall there is right. So looking around the field, namely to go and catch back on board with the current scope of things in the fight for what is set to become the race lead. And we see that Christian Lebay has now put 7 seconds over Zalan Such. Now, in large part, this can be thanks to the incident that happened earlier on. Just to remind you of that incident, this was an effort to get up and around lapped traffic. We were on with Clement Contalutin with Honda. He was up and alongside Stephen Black in the 707 Ferrari. We see the 998 come rocketing through, slams into the Honda. Very nearly hits the McLaren a second time. Now, I think in the long run, he's been quite fortunate to come away with only minor damages after that incident. We see here for Zalan Such making his way up through the S's. We'll get a look over the front of his car. As even in spite of hitting that Honda at some considerable speed, mind you, I think the majority of the impact was absorbed up over the, I think it was the right-hand side when he made contact with it. You can see, though, there is a little bit of damage, but nothing that would render the car a no-go, and it would put him back in the pit lane for the rest of this stint. So he's adamant he can keep things on track until his next pit stop, and then that's where things might get a little bit more sort of touch and go, as it were. He's going to have to scope up whether or not this is going to play a long-running impact on his performance today, and that could reinforce an earlier pit stop for the number 998. And that definitely could shake things up in terms of how does he play against the strategy now that seems to be already against him in the court of Christian Lebay. He's 7.5 seconds up the road, and even before that, he was 1.5 seconds. So this incident, while it may have only really brought 6 seconds in the grand scheme, it is now 6 seconds he cannot hope to make up in this condition. Even though, especially by comparison to some others, it's definitely not race-ending, but it is what's keeping him at arm's length at this time. You see for the 54... and the 607 here. Kevin Quain still trying to unlap himself from right as we see Tanguay peeled into the pit lane a moment ago in the number 30 Bentley. And he'll drop in behind Zalan Such and Christian Lebay. We see him coming to a stop there in his pit box just at the end of the pit lane. Zalan Such now up to 3rd in this race. Now, come all things said and done, realistically, he'll be seeing his way back up to, at the worst of times, his 2nd place where he qualified from. But knowing that he had that brilliant start, knowing that he had the pace to hold on to the race lead, is going to frustrate that 998 over the course of the next hour and 4 minutes. As we come up towards the halfway mark of the race, we'll still wait to see some of those final pieces to fall into this opening puzzle. That namely being where does Wright end up after his first of 2 pit stops today. In terms of nearby fights, I mean, we are somewhat scraping here. We do see a fight going on here. Carl Martel gets up and around David Tanguay in towards the inner loop chicane, but it didn't really look like the 30 was looking to put up much of a fight against his own teammate. Charlie Harker 2.6 seconds behind, so with every chance to potentially fight later down the road before his 2nd pit stop for 6th on the grid. At this time, Harker still holds on to the lead of the AM division. Nearest to him would be Jorge Martinez. He's separate by a little under 2 seconds. So there is definitely that to be considered in the topic of the leading positions of this race. Of course, we're still fettling over what could be the pro category, but let's not ignore the AMs as well. Trying to catch on board here. You see, it's 1.2 seconds. Martinez does stand a pretty solid chance, mind you, of fighting for his division lead here. We saw the enthusiasm in his drive over the course of the last hour, and it has really left a lot to be expected, I would say. Not a lot to be desired, because he's not disappointed at all. A lot to be expected of him coming up into this next stint, because if he can keep on form like this, there is nothing to say that he can't win in the AM category here in the real world racing day at Watkins Glen. So an incident in the background there. Yes, you can see stranded across the track. Yellow flags are out. It's the 616 of Veldkamp. He's facing the wrong way up through turn 4. Now, this is a terrifying spot for one to end up at. Fortunately, he's got a bit of a gap in the traffic here, but he's got to get moving soon. You can see he'll be on the racing line as he tries to turn around. The 113 is only but moments away from him. What is the chances here of him being able to recover the car before the 113 arrives? He tries to get back running. You see there, narrowly avoiding contact with him was Kyle Jenkins. That was terrifying to see. Watch that on the replays there, how close to the wall the Ferrari had to get. As we're back in the green flag conditions here on track. But watch that by a hair's width. Oh, that is too close for comfort. We see the 616 in the live view there. Just got hit from behind by the Lexus. I believe at that time. Getting a look as we're back in the green flag conditions here. That was by Wright at the forefront of this race. Just hit the back end of the 616 of Andrew Veldkamp. Very bizarre stuff. Back on with this fight here. Set to become the fight of the AM division lead as it drops to just hovering around there, that second margin between Martinez and Harker. We still wait to see what is the scope of things coming up then for Wright. We see into the pit lane goes Cheeseman. And this was part of a very bizarre strategy we saw from earlier on, where a lot of drivers did pit within the first 10 minutes, not for damage. By looks of it, all of those cars looked like in pretty good condition. We still wait to see the 54 in as we're past the halfway mark of the race today to see what the grid is going to shape up to look like as we enter the last hour of racing. You see yellow flags are out. It's for the number 35, Didier Potvin. You see there in the wall with the BMW. He's in the tyre wall down at turn 7. By looks of it, he's looking to get the car back up and running, but he will be limping his way through that third sector. So we saw considerable damages on the BMW behind as we continue to see this growing fight for 7th place. Now this is for division lead in the AM category between Charlie Harker and Jorge Martinez. Ford versus Porsche then. We've seen how this matchup has fared in the past. And this could definitely be quite a curious track to see it play out. No current news yet of the 54 coming into the pit lane to serve their first of 2 mandatory pit stops, so we'll be staying on board with this fight as it continues. The number 707, Stephen Black, pulls to one side to allow a bunch of cars past there. That did momentarily bring out the suggestion of a yellow flag. That's a false alarm, nothing to worry about there. But there is much to worry about in the case of Charlie Harker, because with Martinez right on his tail here, the fight of 7th has truly begun on to lap 34 here in Watkins Glen. On with Martinez, up through the S as we go. Now he'll be vulnerable to straightaway. Speeds here, the 707 up in front. Oh my word, into the wall goes Stephen Black. So nearly took both of the AM category front runners out. What on earth was going on up in front there for the Ferrari? That could have ended in disaster. Such quick reaction times there from these two there, especially from, oh my word, from Harker, was that it was in equal parts reaction timing and luck there, just not to have been caught in the rebound by that Ferrari. What on earth happened up through the S's there? That was so close, inches from disaster. You see running out wide at turn 7, that does reignite this fight for Jorge Martinez. He dropped down a peg there, trying not to get slaughtered up through turn 4 by the careening 707. Just something to consider as well in the meantime. Just up in front of things here. LeBay getting up and around. That looks to be Stefan Nicolai in the number 100. And then just about 5 seconds of that last interval is Zalan Such. So there is a chance here that that gap is starting to shrink between those two at the front of today's race, as we do see the 54 did come in a time ago. As we stay on board then with these two, let's get a scope of what the top 10 is looking like at this time. Wright is on his way out of the pit lane as we speak. That puts Rafael Bayer back up on the podium. Carl Martel and David Tanguay set to shift up to 4th and 5th respectively. We'll wait to see where Wright slots in, I should say, not slocks. I don't know what on earth that word means. So Wright's out on track, and I believe just up the road there, as you can see, from Harker and Martinez, and sandwiched in between the pair there, the lapped traffic of Matthew Shanoski in the number 669. They're in 16th place, both pit stops cleared. So looking at the grid now as it stands, getting into the second half of the race proper, Christian LeBay in the lead with the fastest lap, up 8.7 seconds at the newest interval to Zalan Such in second place. Rafael Bayer back onto the podium in third place ahead of Carl Martel and David Tanguay. These two scrapping for 4th place at this time, and they're 4th and 5th respectively. Wright in 6th place, and then behind them we see the fight going on for the AM division leaders. Matthew Shanoski moves out of place there to let Charlie Harker and Jorge Martinez through their 7th and 8th place ahead of Kyle Jenkins in 9th. Kevin Quain rounds out the top 10. Samuel Bell on for an AM podium here, but is 11th overall in this race ahead of Brooklyn Donkin, who's taken both of his mandatory pit stops today and is cleared for the checkered flag in the next 53.5 minutes time. No more pit stops to serve for the number 17. Joey Fisher was contemplating, by looks of it there, the run to the pit lane, but I think this was more in efforts to move over for the 114, unlapping himself. That's Ben Cheeseman. Joey Fisher 13th, Richard Cecil behind him there, 14th place. Tomasz Petrokowski in not 25th, 15th, I should say. We're starting to lose our grasp of English just roughly here. Matthew Shanoski in 16th place ahead of Vincent Simard, 17th, Andrew Velcam 18th, Stefan Nicolai 19th, Ben Cheeseman in 20th, Didier Potvin in 21st, and Stephen Black in 22nd. We're down now 5 cars of today's grid. Started on what was 27 vehicles at the race start when we first went green and racing here in Watkins Glen, and now with 54 minutes left to go, we have dropped away 5 of them over the course of that first half of the race. We see here, ongoing for the fight of 7th, Martinez v Harker for the lead of the AM division. Ford's got the straightaway speed, but Porsche's got cornering capacity, so this is really quite a curious dichotomy to see. It's raw power versus maneuverability. You can see, though, much the same story we told about the Lamborghini. The Porsches are not without their issues. And because they're the only rear-engine car on the grid, they are the only ones to really suffer chief in point from this sort of bizarre phenomena of physics. Well, not really phenomena, is it? But it's this sensation of physics where they have created effectively a pendulum effect, having the engine all the way over the back end of the car. It means that if the back end does step away, it is significantly harder to reel it back in and much more likely to swing all the way around under its own weight. Now, that does give them phenomenal cornering capacity because it means they're able to get grip down range very, very quickly, having the weight all shift over the rear axle at the same time. That means if the tyres are in good condition, they can hammer down very quickly on corner exit. It also gives them significant poke on the run in through the corners, as a lot of that weight shifts up to the middle and then front of the car, giving it quite a lot of grip over the nose. Couple that with quite the sizable aero package over the rear in the 992, it does make it a formidable machine and one of the most popular cars in GT racing to this day. And I would make the assertion the most popular sports car of all time, the Porsche 911. 8 generations of machine now The same design ethos that has bled into frame as far back as the 40s and the time of the Volkswagen Beetle, designed by Ferdinand Porsche. His son Ferry and a team of engineers later transformed that into the 356, and then his son Butzi turned it into the 901, which is the Porsche 911 we now know today. There's your brief history lesson on the Porsche 911, abbreviated in about 10 seconds or less. Down towards turn 6 we go then. Shoot corner. You can see the Mustang running out wide, a bit of understeer on entry, and that does allow Martinez up on the inside. And now Harker has to decide, do I try to fight back early, or do I try and weigh things up for the run through Sector 1? It's going to have to be the latter, as that door was slammed shut the moment it appeared. To consider some other fights going on track at the moment. See, the number 14 is close by to another driver. We've yet to gauge if that is for position at this time. Meanwhile, the 119 is a significant distance now up from the 998. We see here the ongoing fight for the AM division lead. Overall, it's for 7th place between Charlie Harker and Jorge Martinez. We see here in the favour of Martinez is now moving up to 7th place in that golden number 1. Narrowly avoids the wall. Same story for the Mustang behind him. These two have put on an absolute riot here into the start of the second half. Just 10 minutes through on the second half of this race. Through the inner loop chicane they go. And sadly, the Ford unable to reel that gap back in. It still sits at 0.3 of a second. He'll be preying upon a mistake for the Porsche up in front of him. Martinez, so far so good here on lap 38 on the run down towards turn 6. This was the area where the issues arose last time for Harker on lap 37. This time, no dice. On history repeating itself. Down through turn 7 we go. Bit of a wide exit there for Harker. We saw him kick up a little bit of dust over his left-hand side. So 50 minutes of racing left to go. We'll take a look around the grid one more time as well. Before we get into the major running of those last pit stops, we can see from 1st all the way down to 11th all have a pit stop left to serve, and then you've got a little enclave of them from 13th to 15th, and then out back in 20th, Ben Cheeseman still yet to have served his last pit stop. We see serving their last pit stop right now, the 707 of Stephen Black. But having a look through it here, this is one of a few close-by fights on track, as we see another one building up into it is Martel v Tanguay. These two have been at it for some time here. In Watkins, Glen, these two have been competing for that position. We see not too far away is Wright as well. 1.2 seconds now drops into 1.020. So he's reeling these two in. Could very well make it a threes company here for a fight amongst the V8 juggernauts. And really, I do quite appreciate that view of it all. Ford, Bentley, and Lexus there. 3 continents, 3 V8 juggernauts. I believe the Bentley's one is actually the smallest engine of the 3. The joint first largest is between Ford and Lexus. Now, I believe it's a 4-litre twin turbocharged unit. That was co-engineered by the folks at M Sport UK, same company that was responsible for the Ford Puma Rally 1 over in the World Rally Championship. And also it helps in part to develop, if I'm not mistaken, the Ford Raptor in the World Rally Raid Championship. They most recently took podiums at the Dakar Rally, ultimately missing out on this occasion to the Dacia Sandriders division. Up in front of them there, we see one of the Lexus cars. Now, I believe that is Joey Fisher. And he's just trailing off the back end of Rafael Bayer on the back of the podium here. So back on board with these three. Back in that conversation of the V8s in their fight in and around the top 5. So you see then 4-litre twin turbo up against two naturally aspirated 5.4 litres. Now the newest among them is the one, of course, in the 2024 Mustang that was introduced based off of, well, it's technically not new-ish technology, but it is the newest engine to have rolled out of a production floor. We see here with the Bentley getting up and alongside very nearly with the Mustang. So we'll have to halt our conversations here on engines for just a moment's time, because I think we're about to see which is the faster of them on the run down towards the inner loop chicane. It's either the Bentley is able to stay with rather formidably here, and then it's especially this run through the inner loop chicane where it's got an advantage over most cars on the grid, as it's able to just absolutely tank those curves. Very little issue involved. And so just quickly back in, the engine in that Ford, it is technically not new technology. It's derived off of, and this is according to the data we have on it, it's derived from the Coyote engine, which was introduced for the 2015 Ford Mustang, the 6th generation model. And I'm pretty sure the Coyote is still used in large part in the 7th gen unit. They did replace it with sort of a soft reset, the Voodoo engine as it was called in the facelift 6th gen Mustang. But it seems that for the performance unit, they just had more opportunities with the Coyote, went back to basics there. And then, of course, a fun fact as well, this was also co-engineered by M Sport, funnily enough, because M Sport, of course, have a very long-standing partnership now with Ford. It was a real labor of love to bring this car into fruition. Canadian-based Multimatic were helping to produce some of the aerodynamics and chassis components for this unit. They're the same people who we've seen working not only on Ford's LMDH project, but also previously worked on the Porsche 963 that this year as well just went 3 on the trot for victories at the Daytona 24 Hours. So a lot of hard work has gone into making this Ford, albeit there was trouble at Daytona for them most recently, especially in terms of that engine, so there may be an Evo package with a slightly more reliable engine coming around the corner for Ford, but their priority is getting LMDH out of the way. That'll be what they focus on next before we ever see any future developments on the Mustang. And then the topic of the Lexus. Tried and true technology. This car has been around the block and then some. It is really the idea that if it's not broke, don't fix it. And despite the fact that I'm pretty sure the Lexus did come out with an Evo package, in the long run, it's still an absolute titan of a machine. The fact that it's able to come through on a grid of cars far newer than it. Now, if you take a look here in terms of local ages, that Lexus was made in 2015. The Bentley up in front of it was made 3 years later in 2018. And then the Mustang made up in front of it was made, albeit 9 years later, in 2024. But the fact that the Lexus can still compete on pretty solid ground here with newer machines than it, against new regulations for GT3 farther down the line, is quite an impressive thing. It really does go to show how much care and consideration went in to this design. And that's quite stereotypically Lexus. I mean, we've seen that they really don't commit to an idea unless it will absolutely work. I think that's what gives Lexus this very high esteemed reputation of quality cars. They don't go for an idea unless it works. They're not going to compromise on an idea and make it worse off. That's why Lexus only really reveals a sports car once in a blue moon. We most recently got the look of its newest car it's been co-engineered alongside the GR GT, but if I'm not mistaken, it's actually set to be, I remember seeing somewhere electric. I hope that's not the case, because if they have the chance to use that new 4-litre twin turbo unit being used in the new Toyota GR GT, I would say by all accounts go for it. And of course, these were the architects as well that gave us one of the most legendary supercars in the last 20 years, the Lexus LFA, that used a Yamaha co-engineered V10 engine. Such a unique soundtrack that it has not been replicated since. I would like to point out as well, the fight between Martinez and Harker is still going on at this time. So I'm not trying to distract away from that fight as well. We have been glued to this three-way fight here between the V8s over at Bentley, Lexus and Ford. Kevin Quain into the pit lane at this time. The 607 now drops in behind Brooklyn Donkin, who's on for the long run here in the next 3/4 of an hour. before the checkered flag. Donkin still predicted very much so in a top 10, but I would say it could go as far as a top 5 by the end of things here. Now, that widely depends on if he's able to stick to his pace and stay consistent in the next 42 minutes. Nothing to say that he can't be, but things have definitely been a bit of a wobbly road with BMW compared to the more streamlined performances we've seen in the last couple of months with Ford. We see into the pit lane goes Raphael Bayer onto his last pit stop today. And it's a curious one. We had the majority of these strategies nailed down to being that it would be in the last 30 minutes these drivers would come in. But I think what we're seeing here is the Sly attempted a few undercuts from a few of these drivers here. Bayer and Harker into the pit lane. So that separates now Martinez up at the front of the field. He's now going to find himself vulnerable if the cards are played right here by Charlie Harker to a potential undertake to retake the lead of the AM division. Up in front of them here, Tanguay and Martel. It's been a very calm procession up towards the podium positions for these three at this time. Now, we'll see whether or not that does stack out against that of Raphael Bayer, still in the pit lanes at this time. We see him drop off the jacks and he's cleared to go. Evidently did not consider repairing the damages on his car. He deemed it unnecessary and would have wasted more time than it would have given him in the long run. So he's back out on track. See Kyle Jenkins about to intercept, but I think he might just miss out on his chances to take 7th place. He'll go up and ahead of Charlie Harker. He's just on his way out now. As for Samuel Bell, he gets up and ahead of Harker as well. So Harker drops down to 10th place on this grid. As for Bayer, it's only gone 4 positions really away from him, 3 to 7. See, out behind him there was a fight going on with the McLaren. They're trying to get up and around traffic there. That is, I believe, the number 100. So that was Stefan Nikolai and Zalan Such. Just trading positions there down the back straight. 41 minutes left to go here. We're back on board once again with these three. We'll just quickly take a look over there because I thought I saw a spin. No, not the case. Down towards turn 1 once again. Joey Fisher into the pit lane as well. There goes the number 59 onto his final pit stop. Now, I want to try and catch on board some of the onboard cameras from some of these drivers here because it is looking to be a very close, very exciting fight. We do see trouble. Yellow flags out for Ben Cheeseman. Spun around at turn 5. 20th at the moment. But looks like no damage is there. So again, another driver getting very lucky down at that section of the track to stay out of any severe damages. We saw from the front of that 3-car fight, but I want to try and get a look here just out back of it with Wright. So you see Tanguay gets a very late run onto the brakes down at Chute Curve at turn 6. For these drivers running in the ballpark of about 20 to 21 more laps before the end of today's race here in Watkins Glen. You see things definitely starting to get a little bit more engaged, I'd say, up in that fight for what is now currently 3rd on the field. We'll see how that stacks out when strategy plays into the long run. That Bentley and that Mustang are getting closer and closer by the second. We've been watching here with Wright's point of view of things, but he's actually starting to be separated away. As I say that, out through turn 10. Let's not go anywhere then. He's been brought back into this fight through sector 3. And into the pit lane goes the number 99 there. Carl Martel into the pit lane, leaves Tanguay and Wright out by their lonesome now to fend off 3rd place. It is such a sound, is it not there? That 5.4 in the Lexus. Tremendous noise on the run up through the S's. He's currently pursuing the Bentley, who we'll catch on with in a moment's time. Taking a look around, we see here now on board with the Bentley. Matter of fact, I am thinking about this one here. I'm not entirely sure that's actually the real sound for the Bentley. Now, those of you who've heard the Bentley in real life, you'll know that it's got a little bit more of a sort of throatier sound to it, almost AMG-esque, and it's also got that very noticeable turbo flutter from its turbochargers, but you don't hear any of that. In fact, it kind of sounds almost exactly like a sound clone of the Lexus, which, if that's, you know, if that's true, it's a bit lazy. I'm a little upset by that, but oh well. I suppose beggars can't be choosers, and in a game like this, I don't think we get to be either. The 998 moves up into the lead of the race as Christian LeBay comes in for an early pit stop over what would have been a pit predicted in the last 30 minutes. 37 minutes left to go, and the 119 is in, leaves Alan Such out in the lead of this race. David Tanguay currently fending off from right. Will either of them be taking the leap into the pit lane? We see in the case of both, neither will be looking at their chances as LeBay is released from the jacks down towards the exit of the pit lane. Tanguay and Wright cruising in at a rate of knots here. Down at turn 1 we go. Gets up and around the 119. So LeBay will emerge just up in front of this fight. Meanwhile, we also see into the pit lane goes Jorge Martinez. Now, this is going to play quite heavy hand into where the AM division goes into the last stint of this race. It has been a phenomenal drive so far by Martinez. He has had fantastic fights alongside Charlie Harker. We'll see how that fares. Bear in mind, Samuel Bell is currently the buffer zone between them when you consider the division standings. Bell having yet to have pitted himself. We see there Harker in the background, Martinez in the pit lane whilst these two cruise up towards turn 8. So there is absolutely the chance here Martinez can get a successful overcut in on Charlie Harker. You see at the moment Harker out through turn 9 in towards turn 10 and 11. Meanwhile, Martinez is cleared for exit. We see coming into the pits is Alan Such in the background there in that 998 McLaren. Meanwhile, in the case of the AM category, it looks very much so to be the case that Martinez stands upon the chances here to re-emerge in the lead of this division. We see Samuel Bell could give him some grief on exit. As we run round turn 1, it looks to be Martinez by a hair's width. Out through turn 1 we go. Great re-entry to the track, stays up ahead of the 21 and the 72. Martinez, in the next 36 minutes, could be cleared to a win in this category. Great strategy then throughout for the number 1, and great driving as well has put him at the forefront of the AM category fight. He's been able to outlast a lot of his contemporaries ahead of him, and then the ones he's been able to catch up to, he has not wasted any time navigating them and has made light work of what remains of the AM grid. Of course, a lot of drama happened up in the top 5 for the AM category at the start of this race. Of course, we are now without Lucas Milch, who led that charge, but it all came asunder down at the inner loop chicane for him early doors of today's race. And of those yet who remain of the AM category, we now find the following as it stands. Bell was likely to drop down to Division 3rd behind Harker when he comes into his last pit stop, but the bottom line, Martinez is leading it. As for Alan Such, what is the chances right now that he drops in behind LeBay? I think that's already very much so happened. Alan Such on his way out and has lost a lot of time there over Christian LeBay, even more so, as he's now very much so, by the looks of it there, about half a lap away from the 119. As you can see, he's nearing the 54 and the 30. He may not have to wait for these two to pit to take the lead of this race once more. In conditions like these, it has proven to be very bizarre scenarios indeed, but great strategy to give him this monstrous gap. This is the double-edged sword, really, of playing with open-ended strategy. The drivers can do whatever it is they want, but now the drivers have no idea what everyone else is doing. So it is a case here where, for a lot of drivers, especially coming into these off of what is more rigid structures that often come with decided pit windows, pit stop mandates, and more decided stint limits in a longer form race, when you leave it open-ended like this, it is really the tactical choices that win races. We've seen that demonstrated so far by both the 119 and, for that matter, the number 1 in both the Pro and Am categories so far. 34 minutes to the checkered flag. We'll see exactly how all of that unfolds. We're seeing here, though, from the look of things, neither of these two looking to be going into the pit lane anytime soon. I think they're going to give it at least 4 more minutes and give it until 30 minutes left in the race before either of them take considerations of a pit lane run for the last time today. Meanwhile, LeBay is about to reel them in. He's only 8/10 out through turn 1. He's got the run, he's got the tyres, and moreover, he's got the velocity to carry up towards these two. He's got that momentum carrying up through turns 2, 3, and 4. Number 616 in the pit lane at this time. Andrew Veldkamp is in with Porsche. Currently no news yet on whether or not Bell will be coming in. We see him side by side with Harker out through turn 7. Harker mounting frustration here, trying to get around Bell, knowing that that gap is continuing to slip away between himself and Martinez. Going in towards turn 8, he's still stuck in behind the Ferrari, just hugging the inside line. Can't find any room of it. We're going to go up and around the outside at turn 9. There's still no current indication as to what is going on here between these two. Bell still denies room away from Harker. Harker is going to get very, very upset in a moment's time here if this continues, because right now it really much looks like the number 21 is swerving up in front of him. And we definitely saw that between turns 9 and 10. Bell stays out for all intents and purposes. If this was an in-lap, it would have still, been rather frustrating, but you can see there, holding the right-hand side of the track in towards turn 1. He's denying any kind of leeway over Harker. Out through turn 1. The Mustang is now descended upon him. That number 21 is running out of luck here through turn 2. He's collected the marbles there up through the S's. Rejoins behind Harker. We saw there the exchange of position. That was for 8th place. Samuel Bell drops in behind. You can see they're returning the favour. Very cheeky indeed between those two. Meanwhile, now having split the tide there between Wright and Tanguay, LeBay up to 2nd overall. And may not have to wait for these two to pit to take the lead of this race. We mentioned that before, but it's now starting to see the wheels in motion here for the 119. Up past the 54, the number 30 still in his iron sights. Meanwhile, for Zalan Suchi, he's just about to start lap 49. So nearest fights on the track at the moment, LeBay v Tanguay at the forefront of fighting today. Bell v Harker on what remains of the podium for the AM category. Bell still able to hold on to, by looks of it, their 3rd place. He's got, I think, enough of a buffer zone between himself and Joey Fisher in 4th place. But if anything goes wrong between now and the checkered flag, that is going to be first person to know about it is Fisher. Meanwhile, we see Matthew Shinosky's in the pit lane at this time, taking a run through. And likely, yeah, coming to a stop. So even though it's shown that he's done 2 mandatory pit stops, evidently, this could be fuel concerns or it could be damage. We don't yet know. We can't really see much of what the front end is looking like for Matthew Shinosky's car. So you see behind the fight for the lead at the moment, we see the Wright's got his hands full with what appears to be the 607. That is, yes, Kevin Quain down in 11th place. Up front then, we see LeBay about to overtake David Tanguay. He's in the slipstream on the Bentley. He's got the run down the opening straight. The 119 on his first drive for Ford, and he's back up into the lead down through turn 1 at the 90. 30 minutes then to the checkered flag. He's in the home stretch of what has been 2 hours of racing today. So far of it has been an hour and a half. 30 minutes left to go. Still 2 drivers yet to pit. Tanguay or Wright. And then in the AM category, Bell still yet to have made any decision to move to the pit lane. So until they do, this is what the grid looks like in the last 30 minutes. Christian LeBay now leads this race in the 119. David Tanguay in 2nd, Wright in 3rd, Zalan Such in 4th, with likely chances to move to 2nd by the end of this race. Same story applies to Rafael Bayer in 5th place at this time. Carl Martel 6th, Jorge Martinez at the forefront of the AM category fight. He's up and ahead of Charlie Harker in 8th place, and Samuel Bell in 9th. Brooklyn Donkin makes the last of the top 10 positions with Kevin Quain in 11th, Kyle Jenkins in 12th, Richard Cecil in 13th, and Joey Fisher in 14th. Thomas Petrakovsky in 15th place ahead of Vincent Simard in 16th, Stefan Nikolai in 17th ahead of Matthew Shinosky in 18th. So you see there, Ben Cheeseman in 19th, Didier Potvin 20th, and Andrew Velkamp in 21st. Meanwhile, Samuel Bell into the pit lane, so Brooklyn Donkin could be seeing an easy promotion there, and that he does. Up to 9th place goes the number 17. In the case of Kevin Quain, could it be into the top 10 for the 607? That's his chances right now. In terms of division rankings, this has not changed anything for Bell. He entered the pit lane 3rd place in the AMS and is still there for the time being. In terms of overall rankings, though, he is now dropping out of the top 10 to Kevin Quain. Now takes up the helm of 10th place. Looking here from Joey Fisher's point of view, pretty sure he's actually a full lap down, so his chances to inherit that position off of Bell aren't super likely. So his hopes right now reside in that Bell takes a penalty of some kind. He maybe sped into the pit lane and has to go in for a stop-go 30. That is what's going to give the 59 its opportunity to potentially take home a third place in division. We see Bell on his way out at this time, now having since dropped down to Bollocks with their 12th place, with Kyle Jenkins getting up and around for 11th. Bell on his way out, no penalties there, so that's doomsday scenario really for Joey Fisher. Nonetheless, he'll be taking Division 4th ahead of Petrokovsky in the back of the Division top 5. Still then with 2 pit stops left to serve here. One from David Tanguay and one from Wright. These two still close by to one another, but neither of them having yet considered a run to the pit. It's a confusing time then on this grid. 27 minutes left to play for here. It is a curious one. Curious one indeed. Taking a look as well. Now, this is whilst we've got the opportunity as we close in on the last couple of laps of this race, not far from now, to discuss that road ahead, the Competizione Performance League World Series. Now, of course, we mentioned it earlier on in the live stream. You can see the first round coming up in Silverstone. Taking a look at the sign-ups so far, things a little bit sparse as of right now. Bear in mind, we have seen sign-ups explode in a week, so I do see the chances of this blowing up after today's event. Any drivers curious for this style of racing will be happy to know a whole series of it is coming. You can sign up on the Competizione Performance League SimGrid page for the World Series. The races there will start at around the same time as they have today, so that's a very lucrative sign for the European theatre of drivers that we saw their first appearances here on what is a primarily North American ring in the Triple Crown Enduro Series over Christmas. So looking at the sign-ups page at the moment, in the pro drivers, we only have 2 to speak of right now, Rafael Bayer and Christian Lebay. But then we look down into the AM category. This is where we end up with drivers like drivers we've seen before on these broadcasts, especially in this league, such as Casey Malles, Carl Markle. We also have Carson Claus, who made his debut in the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series this week, as a matter of fact. We also have Richard Cecil, Stephen Black, and Didier Potvin. We've got new drives coming in then from... Looking at it there, from Sean Cox in the number 74 McLaren. They'll be driving in the AM category later on next weekend. So that's going to be a curious one to see how some of these new drivers fare. Now, the sign-ups are still very much so underway, and capacity is still very far out from being filled. There's 12 available slots in the AM category and 17 available slots. Technically 18, but 17 at the moment in the GT3 Pros. So that's a lot to be considered. First round at Silverstone, then Paul Ricard, then Imola, Watkins, Glen and Red Bull Ring for the opening half. That'll bring us over the course of the next 2 months here, at the start of February through to the end of March. Bringing that away, we see here with Wright. Now looking to consider his options for a run to the pit lane. We see in goes Wright. Tanguay stays out. But right into the pit lane. This could allow Zalan Such up to 3rd in this race. Just under 25 minutes left to go then. Veldkamp still in the pit lane. It looks to possibly be a bit of a soft DNF coming up here for the 616. He's 8 laps down now. That Porsche has been in for some time. So with Wright already cleared for exit, it was a super short stop once he actually got to his pit box there. Nonetheless, that has not stopped Zalan Such from taking 3rd in this race. Now, with that trajectory, he's looking at a chance of 2nd place. So all things said and done, it's not the end of the world for Zalan Such. He's finished the race where he's qualified, but I think he's definitely going to be lamenting what could have been of today's result, especially considering how strong a start that was from the 998. We see here with the number 30, the last car then to take a pit stop is David Tanguay. And we're still awaiting to see what the verdict is. 24 minutes left to go here in Watkins Glen. The number 30, currently no current understanding as to whether or not he'll be in this lap. Rafael Bayer, I mean, this is a bit of a doomsday scenario because he has now dropped to the back of the top 5, had a chance to be on the podium today. And really, it's been the car, I'd say, more so than anything that's let him down in some capacity. The Lamborghini has been rather unstable. 2 major incidents for Bayer in this event so far, neither of which yielded sufficient damages to bring him out of competition. He'll still be within the top 5, and that is not too bad a shout whatsoever. And we'll be seeing him later down the line in the Pro Series. Not the Pro Series, the World Series. Pro Series is a different championship. Don't get that one twisted up. But maybe he does. I don't know. Maybe he does compete in the Pro Series. I'll have to go and ask the folks over on XCL TV whether or not they know a thing or two about that one. No. We'll be seeing them next weekend in the World Series over on Competizione Performance League on Saturday, the 7th of February. Also got some exciting news as well. Coming up on the 7th is also the opening round of the AXRL Southern Summer Endurance Series. That is going to get to be really frustrating to pronounce. I guarantee you that. You'll get sick of me trying to roll over that word every single time we go live with them. But the first round of that is coming up this coming Saturday. That'll be quite early in the morning for us. Of course, 11-hour time difference with the folks over at AXRL. We'll be going live at around, I want to say about 8 in the morning. It's going to be an exciting time coming up in the next week as well. We've also got the season finale for Season 10 of VSR. We've also got the second round of MSC Season 3 coming up on the Friday. Number 72 dished out a drive-through penalty for track limits. That pertains to Charlie Harker. So things have gone rather awry here for Harker. This could open up the doors potentially to put things closer instead there with Samuel Bell. Now, he's a bit too far away to see an immediate overtake, but that gap being slammed down massively could spell more positive signs in the near future. I'm not 100% sure of that one. We'll wait to see, as Harker is still about halfway through his drive-through penalty. We see Donkin now move up to 8th place. Quain potentially to move up even into 9th by looks of it here. Martinez has now opened the gap up exponentially. Really, all he's got to do is Sunday drive this one down towards the line. 21.5 minutes away from a category victory. Harker now clear to the exit, so no risk of loss there to Bell, who is now about 4 or 5 corners away. Still no word on Tanguay's move to the pits. It is a curious one indeed for Bentley. So yeah, just to pick back up on that previous conversation, coming up into Saturday at 8 AM Greenwich Mean Time. So that's for our viewers in the UK. That's the time zone we're using. Is when we'll be getting on board with the folks at AXRL for the Southern Summer Endurance Series. That's going to be 15 GT3s and 15 GT4s at the moment. They have already completely maxed out their sign-up of GT3s. So if you are curious about signing up for that series, they have still, looking at it there, not 11 slots, 9 slots left to go for the GT4s at this time. It's going to be exciting to see how things went. Of course, we were live with those folks not long ago for the Multi-Class Madness Kyalami race. That was a great time over in Midrand, South Africa, and now we get to pick things back up for the first round of their championship. That comes up, of course, on, as mentioned, the 7th at 8 in the morning. We'll be going live from Austria at the Red Bull Ring, formerly the Österreich and A1 Ring. 20 minutes left to go then here in Watkins Glen. And things have started to dissipate a little bit in terms of moment-to-moment action. A lot of the strategy of today's race has played quite a heavy hand now in deciding these positions, a little bit more rigid in their placement. Not a lot of drivers in close proximity, enough to be considered battles. It's more long-winded, it's more drawn out here. And this is now a game of consistency to decide positions. Still yet to see any moves to the pit lane. Tanguay now 56 laps on this race so far. Only one pit stop having actually been taken. The second still yet to arrive. We do yet wonder, what is the strategy here? Is it to try and put the Bentley in the top 5? Because right now, the chances of him doing that are starting to wither away with every lap that he refuses to come in. So he is now well beyond that elastic point for performance on this car. It is only going to continue to get worse for him here on out. Now, of course, that's subjective. We don't exactly know what the driver is thinking, but on paper here, he's just going to keep hemorrhaging time away from the drivers around him. And his chances to maintain a top 5 for the Malwar Racing Team in the Bentley is starting to wither away. Namely, let's go and take a look on board here with the car in 3rd place, Zalan Such. As you can see, lap traffic around him, between him and that of Tanguay, making our way into Sector 3. Oh, hang on a tick there into the wall is Marto, and oh my word, that was lightning fast reactions there to get himself back to the pits. he opened up the pause menu and he had really just like sped run that. I mean, we'll try and attempt that ourselves. We saw another wall out through turn 1 and then just disappeared. That was very quick. I mean, he's quite literally just gone like that, effectively. The moment the wheels were in motion and he was spinning out, maybe a little bit faster than that, but still, into the pits. Actually, was that out of the race entirely for the 99? I think it might have been whilst he was moved back into the pit lane, but oh my goodness. That was very surprising. Currently in the pits then, Stefan Nikolai. In the number 100. Very mixed bag race here for him at this time. Has seen a series of quite rather highs and lows. Heading up around the S's here, we see with Wright being followed closely there by the 113. That's Kyle Jenkins at the back of the top 10. In terms of division rankings, this is 8th place he's in for the pros. 17 minutes left to go here in Watkins Glen. Now, there is still a chance there can be a pretty sizable shift inside of that top 5 coming up soon from the number 30. Meanwhile, that grid now has been reduced down. When you consider the effective soft DNF there from the 616 of Veldkamp, that grid started at 27 cars. We're out 8 of them now. So this is a brutal, brutal reality we face here in today's race, that it has not been pleasant for some. And that has gone quickly from not been pleasant to some to not been pleasant for many. The 120 into the pits at this time. That is for, yeah, Vincent Simard into the pits. Has there been perhaps a disconnect for him there? Because we do seem to recall him being much farther up the top 10. Right now, the 120 down in 15th place. I think that definitely does spell the signs there of either an emergency stop or a disconnect from the 120's point of view. But no, I don't think it is, because when you consider the fact as well that when we took a head count there, it was still 19 cars, and he was one of them. So it's not a disconnect, but it is an emergency stop for Simard. It does leave the chances then open for Nikolai to move up position over Simard into the top 15. We'll wait to see exactly how that one unfolds, though. The 120 technically still in this race, but is in an emergency stop position in the pit lane. Hence the yellow flags down the opening straight on the bottom right-hand side of your screens at the moment. So taking a look around the field, we've dropped into a very quiet patch of what has been 2 hours of action here in Watkins Glen International. We saw from Zalan Such's point of view, next car in front of him there being Tomasz Petrakovsky in the number 14 AMG, the only Mercedes on today's grid, and he's inside the top 15, so he's done a pretty solid job of things at the moment. In terms of the AMs, taking a look there, he's inside the top 5 there, looking to finish division 5th in today's race. He's going to move over to allow Zalan Such easier leeway down towards turn 1. The 114 was in trouble there. That was Ben Cheeseman now having been forced into the pit lane. The yellow flags were momentarily out between turn 6 and turn 7. The 114 caught out by something, not entirely sure what. But given the reputation of that section of the track, it could definitely be raised as a concern that he has spun out. Trying to control the car off the exit of turn 6. The car's tipped around just before turn 7, and now he's ran himself into trouble. We'll see whether or not that's the end of the road for the 114. Wait to get any kind of updates there from Cheeseman. Now, observing the gap between Tanguay and Zalan Such at this time. Now, this is to give us a synopsis as to whether or not this long-winded strategy currently being utilized by the 30 is actually proving to be successful at all. Now, right now, he'll continue to lose position out, even if he pits now or later. 16 seconds, he is very much so in interception range from the number 998, who will move up to second in this race the moment he goes into the pits. Once he confirms that, even if it's a run-and-gun stop, he will still lose position out, unless something stops the 998 from making his way up to his current position. So we are going to try and catch on board here with the Bentley. Just curious to find out what exactly has been the plan in action here for the Bentley. He stays out again, so rather frustratingly, still unable to gauge when he'll come into the pit lane. It seems every time we make a prediction, he goes 15 minutes over it. We can't go any later than this now. He'll get to the end of the race with still a pit stop to serve, and that'll be a very big penalty coming up for the number 30. Taking another look around the field, I mean, there really isn't much to talk about at this time. Strategy has waylaid many fights of today's grid into the last 15 minutes. A lot of this, as mentioned before, has now become a game of consistency. It's chess, not checkers. It's a lot more plotted and planned out action now than what we would normally get in the moment-to-moment series of events you'd see in the opening hour of any race. As is per tradition almost with every endurance race we've covered, that there is always that quiet period. I'm quite surprised to see that quiet period creeps up so late in a 2-hour race. Normally it's in and around that 30 minutes we see in between, or hour I should say, we see in between the opening 30 minutes and the last 30 minutes. Normally the last 30 minutes is where we start to see the crunch end of what is a longer concertina effect across the whole grid, but right now I'm not seeing much of it at all. A lot of these drivers now just dedicated to their positions, hammering down at the times, and wherever they end up, There is something to be commented on about that top 10. The 113, 5.4 seconds from Samuel Bell. That gap has been hovering around 5.5, so to start seeing it chip into 5.4 does raise some questions. Now 5.3 seconds. Now with 10 minutes left to go, progress like this could definitely give rise to something around the corner, but whether or not it's going to constitute a fight in the next couple of laps raises another question entirely. Again, we see on 61 laps now, Tanguay yet to have served his final pit stop. Well, it's already served one today. You see there a little bit of a wiggle on his way in through the inner loop chicane. Kevin Quain behind him, looking to unlap in the 607. Ten minutes then left to go on this race. Taking a look at the grid for the last time before the checkered flag. We might even have to pick this back up, so I'm going to have to hold my tongue on saying that for the last time, because we're probably going to have to check back in when we see Tanguay into the pit lane. But taking a look at it as it stands, Labey in the lead, Tanguay second, Zalan Such in third with Wright in fourth, Rafael Bayer in fifth, with Jorge Martinez at the forefront of fighting for the AM division, leading by a landslide in local division there, and sixth overall in this race. Brooklyn Donkin in 7th ahead of Charlie Harker in 8th, Kevin Quain 9th and Kyle Jenkins in 10th, Samuel Bell in 11th with Richard Cecil in 12th place. Joey Fisher in 13th ahead of Thomas Petrokowski, and we see into the pit lane there is the number 30, so at long last, I mean, then you talk about going the extra mile, look no further than the number 30 there. He's going to lose out third, but the question is he going to be in the top 5 come the end of this race? That's the question. The signs definitely do point towards it being the case that he lands at least about 4th or 5th. I'd say definitely he's in the ballpark for 4th. Zalan Such already up past him. You see for Wright, actually no, it's definitely going to be a case now where we've got to start questioning if he's going to be top 5 material by the end of this race. Nearest to him to lose that position out and to get up into the top 5 is going to be Martinez. So before he's even come to a stop, now we see him stopped. And looking there, Wow, that is a short stop. I was not expecting that one. So that's why he's done it. He's done a lot of the early doors fueling and tire work right off the bat. Now he just comes in, gets up on the jacks, immediately off, out he goes. So Wright takes up the helm of fourth. Sorry, of third, I should say. Forcing Tanguay down to fourth. Rafael Bayer just makes his way around turn one. The number 30. Long out of range there, just up the road from the 113, physically on track. That's 10th place Kyle Jenkins. So now we see how the grid shapes up. And really, it's only been a swap of one position. Tanguay down to fourth, right up to third. Rest of the grid still withstand. So we go back down towards Petrokovsky, who's 14th, Nikolai 15th, Shanovsky 16th, Potvin 17th, Simard 18th, Cheeseman 19th, and Veldkamp 20th. Though we could definitely raise the argument now that these are two soft DNFs. Both of them residing in the pit lane just to see the last 7.5 minutes of the race out. That was the last sort of big move of this race here, was Tanguay's move to the pit lane. And now that we're separate from that, 7.5 minutes to the line, we'll wait to see if any battles do re-emerge, though unlikely to do so given the current scope of the race at this time. There could be the argument here, Quain v Harker, one to consider, 2.2 seconds and slowly closing in the favour of the 607. So there is a potential fight for 8th place coming up. We'll stay on board here with Kevin Quain's onboard footage as we take a look through Sector 2 and 3. Six and a half minutes to go before the end of this race. So in this case for the 119, he'll be coming up towards the line with about 6 minutes left, giving him functionally about 4, maybe at a squeeze 5 more laps to play with. I'd say three more to 4 before the checkered flag. With these being around a second and 44 second and not a second and 44, a minute 44 seconds, minute and 45 seconds. I mean, you'd wish a lap would be a second long, wouldn't you? But in this case, that it's just under that 2-minute barrier. So functionally about 3, maybe 4 more laps before the end of this race. We'll leave you on board with Quain v Harker just for a moment's time. We'll be back in a second. To get back on board then, 4 minutes left to go in this session, and we've seen now descending upon the back end of the 72 is Kevin Quain, actively part of a fight for 8th place here. Now, it does little to affect their division rankings, but this is for the on-track position they're fighting for, and they're going to fight every step of the way. In towards turn one we go then, it's Mustang against Mustang. Quain attacking, Harker defending. We see they're running out wide through the 90. We try to get on board with Charlie Harker just to see the defending angle of things, but I think very soon we're about to see the defending angle as moving up to 8th place almost immediately goes Kevin Quain. Up through turns 2, 3, and 4. Now, Harker forced into the attacking position of this fight for 8th place. The question is, knowing that his position amongst the podium for the AM division is already secured in the next 3 minutes, how hard is he willing to push that car to retake 8th place off of Kevin Quain? We'll catch on with these two in a moment's time just to take another look around the track. We see here now from the attacking point of view, formerly the defending point of view from Charlie Harker. 3 minutes left to go in this race. So we see from LeBay's point of view, we're going to try and go and catch on board here. Just see there was side-by-side action, Petrakovsky and Bell, but this was only to overtake in terms of lapping. So we get on board here with the 119 just to see. With about 2 minutes 40, 2 minutes 30, I reckon as we get down towards the line, probably about 2 minutes 20 seconds left to go before the end of this race. Probably about 2:25 actually, given his pace right now. Dead on nearly 2:24. But it's a case here, getting onto that penultimate lap of the race. We'll have one more lap after this, and then that is really the end of the road. We'll be getting on to that final lap. Not far from now, does Christian LeBay look upon the chances to win here in the Competizione Performance League Real World Racing Day exhibition at Watkins Glen International in his first ever career drive with Ford. Now, this is one hotly anticipated in his GT3 career. It was previously slated to be a move to Jaguar, as we mentioned earlier in the stream, but today has proven rather fruitful on what was a heel-turned decision that ultimately resulted in him joining the Blue Oval. And this does lay a very exciting precedent coming forward, especially into its debut to the Sunday League, the 119 Mustang. Normally the 119 having clad the V12 Vantage by Aston Martin for the last 4 seasons of that series, so this is definitely going to be quite an exciting one when we get into that first round in Suzuka next Sunday coming. Well, technically this Sunday coming. So to take a look around the field here, we are seeing a lot of fights, but mostly just to lap or unlap for that matter. In this case, we see Stefan Nikolai trying to unlap himself from Samuel Bell. See how close he's willing to make it here over that Ferrari. You see almost pushing the Ferrari. That was contact. Oh, into the wall goes Samuel Bell, turned around by Stefan Nikolai. How on earth did he think that move was going to happen, getting that close to the back of the Ferrari? As you see here, it was that one tiny little knock, and you've got to consider they're uphill, actively turning at over 110 miles per hour. It's disastrous. Samuel Bell turned around by a driver unlapping himself. He is not going to be happy. I mean, there are words in the English vernacular that do not accurately describe the rage that must be felt in that 21 right now. And it all falls upon the shoulders of this one here. Race Control is going to be licking their lips at the possibility to review this case. It's the number 100. It's not looking good. It's not looking good. We see here for Vincent Simard also trying to unlap himself, this time from Brooklyn Donkin up in front of him. Now, hopefully history does not have a habit of repeating itself. Number 28 in trouble. That's Rafael Bayer. So yellow flags are out. This is at turn 7. Let's go and catch on board of the Lamborghinis here. As we see the 28. That is trouble for him. Rafael Bayer does drop out of the top 5. Now, does it look to be steering damage? Yes, absolutely. On the final lap here. Bear in mind, with LeBay actually closing in on him, this could be the saving grace here to keep him inside of the top 10. You can see he could barely get the car turned in at turn 8. There's LeBay. So when he crosses the line, that is the end of the road for him. But now he's got to make 4 corners and he just can't. He can't get the car to turn. This is disastrous for Rafael Bayer. He could lose out on perhaps even the top 10 on the way things have been going. We see Christian LeBay making his way down towards the line here. Out through turn 10, then comes turn 11. An exciting new chapter in his GT3 career starts here at the Real World Racing Day as he takes the checkered flag to win here in Watkins Glen with Ford. A brilliant drive then on his first ever for the Blue Oval. The 119 victorious here in Watkins Glen. Zalan Such, lamenting on what could have been a better result today, nonetheless comes home to finish where he started, second place A great result then throughout for the 998. Caught up over strategy and a few different incidents there. Very nearly one for him as he made his way down through turn 10. Behind him there now looks to be that's Samuel Bell after his major damages. Down towards the line then comes Zalan Such, second place in today's race. You see in the background there, that's still Rafael Bayer careening his car down towards the line. You can see he's just about there, able to avoid hitting that of Shanosky. Bayer 8th in this race. Right, not far from the checkered flag here. We'll also be catching on in a moment's time with that of Jorge Martinez, who's about to see a division win here in the Real World Racing Days. We already saw the pro win to the line there. Right, third place. Tanguay to the line after a very long strategy today by 3.3 seconds, 3.2 seconds, I should say, to fourth. No, he's not far from the line, this one, and we'll be catching on board in a moment's time. Actually, we are on board right now. What am I talking about? We're on board with him right now. And this is Jorge Martinez. We saw the Pro Division win come down to the line there. 28 seconds, a dominant performance by LeBay. But seeing it out towards the checkered flag then for the AM Division win today. Two winners from the Pros is Christian LeBay, and from the AMs is Jorge Martinez. A fantastic drive from the number 1 Porsche. He had his elbows out all throughout this race and doubled down with a brilliant strategy to follow. Great driving then from Martinez. Takes the AM win. LeBay, your pro winner. 2 wins in 1 race. A fantastic drive then from both parties. So you see they're celebrating down at the 90 with LeBay already back into the pit lane, getting geared up and ready for the next run. Well, definitely quite the spurious set of results. Taking a look there, Christian LeBay, your winner here in the Real World Racing Days. Alan Such in second place with Wright in third, Tanguay 4th, and Jorge Martinez on your screens there makes not only the top 5 overall, but takes the AM Division win. Brooklyn Donkin in 6th, Kevin Quain 7th, Rafael Bayer on a disastrous last lap, managed to limp his Lamborghini to 8th ahead of Charlie Harker in 9th and on for a division podium in the AM category. Then with Carl Jenkins 10th, Richard Cecil 11th, it's Samuel Bell 12th, but division 3rd in the AMs. Joey Fisher division 4th, but overall 13th. And then further down the line, Petrokovsky at the back of the division top 5 and 14th in this race. Stefan Nikolai in 15th with Matthew Shanosky 16th and division 6th. Didier Potvin division 7th, but overall 17th with Vincent Simard in 18th place. You can see the WOD there of DNFs in today's race. Technically, it shows that Veldkamp finishes even though he was 21 laps down and in the pit lane the whole time. We also see potential DNFs there to be reported. Carl Martel, Ben Schiesman. We also see Stephen Black, Clement Quentin-Luton, George Todd, Alfie Hughes, Lucas Milch. We see there Artemy Yartsev. And we also see the DNSs from Radoslav Kowalczyk and Sergio Hernandez. But what a drive it has been on both parties there. Christian LeBay wins in the pros with Ford. Jorge Martinez wins in the AMs with Porsche. Well, a very fun little event indeed. A one-off and a first of its kind. Then the prelude for what is going to be the run into the World Series on Competizione Performance League. Just a reminder that the sign-ups are still underway and with plenty of slots to accommodate for. So get yourselves down to the sim grid and sign up for that event if you're interested in an event on this time slot. It'll be working its way around some of the larger series on our calendar, including the Console Endurance Series, so you'll not miss out if you're to compete in both. Until then, that's all from us here on TRTN. Our next broadcast comes up actually not too far from now, once again with the folks at the Competizione Performance League, when we go live for yet another round of the GT4 Pro-Am Cup America Series in Season 2. Then we'll be getting on the same day on Wednesday in a few days' time to the final round of Season 10 of VSR, and we'll have the full sort of run of things for a few more events coming up later down the line. It's going to be a busy week coming up here for us on TRTN. Until then, that's all from us. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Take care. Good night.